what's up?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the program.
The Airtime Podcast is presented by Van Shoes since 1966.
There's nothing fake about it. Have something to believe in and be yourself. You know what I'm saying?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. For this week's guest, we have Alek Oestreng, all the way from beautiful Norway, that place that, you know, we all want to go on vacation one day, but as of right now, with all the restrictions, we will follow suit and not travel anywhere, but holy shit, it looks beautiful. Am I right? Norway? All right, Alek. Forum. That's when I first heard of him. That's when he caught my attention, when he was up in the mix. Not the Forum 8. After that, Forum Vacation, Forum Fuck It. That kind of era. Being invited to all the park shoots. Big icy park jumps at the end of the season that are covered in salt. That we all know in those Forum movies. It's just like if you were the young gun, it's like you show up. It's basically like, you're our park dude, so why don't you guinea this jump and, you know, hopefully you don't knuckle and ruin your summer. And he didn't ruin his summer at all. In fact, he absolutely crushed it so much that when Forum drove itself off of a cliff and ended inevitably, he got signed with Burton. And you got to wonder, you know, Burton bought Forum. Did Forum drive itself off a cliff, or did Burton buy Forum to drive it off of a cliff?
You're driving along, and all of a sudden the kids are yelling from the back seat, I gotta go to the bathroom, Daddy. Not now, damn it. Truck tire. I can't stop. Help! There's a cliff.
When he was on Burton, was he happy to be amongst the club? Was it what he wanted? Was it like everything that's cracked up to be? You know, he gets signed on the biggest company in snowboarding, Burton Snowboards. It wasn't for him. And you want to stay glued to the end of this episode as he really opens up about, well, achieving everything that he's always wanted to achieve and what that felt like. He also filmed for like The Beacon, Lewif's project, made his own similar style project to Lewif called Void in 2018, an amazing movie. If you haven't checked that out, 5 years riding at Xgames and coming in top 10. I mean, he got 4th. And I mean, he was juggling that with filming video parts, which I have, as we all know, so much respect for. And just truly one of the best all-around snowboarders to ever strap. I say that a lot, but let's just say every single year of Alek's career, I don't know if he is, he's a park jumper this year. And then the next year, I'm like, no. He rides quarter pipes and he's going to the Arctic Challenge. And then the next year, I'm like, oh no, dude, slow down. He's a POW dude. Like, he's deep out there in the POW, and that's all. No, he's a street rider, dude. He wants to relive his youth and he wants to hit some steel. Then the next year, I'm like, no, dude, he's like a Sam Taxwood. He's like everything combined into one. And then the year after, I'm just like, I don't know who he is, because he can snowboard on every single terrain better than everybody. And if you disagree with me, spend the next few hours watching all of his video parts in a row. Mind-blowing. Stay tuned, everybody. This episode is fire! Alright, big shoutouts to our sponsor, Vans. Simply the best snowboard boots in the world. Brian Iguchi, the GOAT. What is he wearing? He's got a pro model, the Verse. He's wearing the dual boa that allows him to get that click, click, click. You just zzz, and then you just pull and you're out and you're in and out, and you probably gain a full lap going to the dual boa system. I don't know if that's true. Some say you can get a full lap though. You can beat your friends out on a full lap a day because you're going dual boa. You know who else wears the boa, the Verse, the Brian Iguchi Pro model? You've guessed it, our guest, Alek. He's been laced up with Vans since 2017, and he has been wearing the Verse, and he absolutely loves them. Check him out today at your fine snowboard shops in your area. Support local, buy local, do it more than ever these days. Or, for whatever reason, if you don't have a snowboard shop in your area, you can always find these lovely boots and other boots that are suited to your funky feet on Vans.com or Vans.ca. All right, enjoy the show. All right, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. We have Alek Oestreng. Is that how you say it?
I think it's Oestreng, or in
Aus-
Norwegian it's Oestreng, but we we have this Norwegian letter that's just randomly translated to O in English.
wait, what's that random letter?
So it's a O with a like a slash through it.
And oh yeah, I've seen that. That one's cool.
Yeah.
That's like I could steal that and put that like in a logo or something like that.
Well, I actually see it in a lot of logos. Like a lot of people in America use it as just a normal O, but it has a different meaning here, I guess.
I just haven't seen it in the snowboard community. You know what I mean? I'm waiting for the O with the slash.
It'll be there sometime soon.
So you grew up in Norway, correct?
Yes, I born and raised in Norway. My parents moved here, I guess a year before I was born. Or my mom's Norwegian and my dad. So they met in Croatia. My dad's from Serbia, and they moved to Norway because of the Yugoslavia war.
Whoa. The Yugoslavia War. I mean,
Yep.
if your parents were kind of in around for that, what was that like? And do you know any of the facts or
No,
history behind that? I've never
I
even
just know
heard of
that
that.
my mom was like working there with like travels and stuff. She's Norwegian, and my dad is from there. And I honestly don't know too much because they split up when I was really young, and I don't really hang out with my father.
Very much.
No.
Well, that I mean, from what age was that? Was that like devastating to you? Was that like like a
Well, I mean, I have no memories like of them together because I was so young.
Oh, okay. Wow. So
I
is
was
that
like
young?
1 or 2 when they split up. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. And you were neighbors to quite the little snowboard community without even knowing, if I'm correct. I had Stale on the podcast, and he said that you guys have known each other for a long time. What was it like where you grew up? What was that like? Like, what was the community like? What was the vibe like? I've never even been to Norway, so I'm just trying to get a grasp on what your childhood was compared to mine in Canada in the middle of kind of the country.
So yeah, I mean that was a little bit later that I moved there. So I was kind of like moving around a lot when I was until I was 5 or 6, I think 5, and then I moved to this neighborhood, and then first person I met was Ola 2 doors down, and then a little later Stala just across from her like little like playing ground or whatever, and that's sort of when that started. So I think I was like 6 when I met Stala, and he was probably 4 because he's 2 years younger than me.
Whoa, so like legit childhood friends. That's crazy.
Yes.
You've known each other. I don't have too many I think I have one friend that I still hang out with from that age group, and we could not be any more different, but we're just like, we're homies forever. Like he works at a grain building, um selling grain, like wheat and stuff like that in portion sizes, and he like makes like computer analytics so grain can ship easier, and I don't have a single grasp on what he does.
So he doesn't snowboard then.
So he did snowboard. We snowboarded and
Yeah.
skateboarded our whole lives together. And then as soon as like high school was done, I moved out west, and he just like stopped. I mean, maybe he goes like once every few years now with his old man, and I mean, that's very different from you and your crew, because all of you guys still snowboard, skateboard, and in some aspect, I mean, you guys all made it too. Like,
Well, I think like I was really lucky, or it was like fortunate that all 3 of us, ended up having, you know, kept snowboarding, and a lot of the people that we grew up with, because it wasn't just us. We were just like one little like neighborhood, and there's like tons of neighborhood tons of neighborhoods, and they all rode at our local hill. And our local hill used to be packed with snowboarders, like 30, 40, 50. I don't even know. It was people snowboarding there all the time. And a lot of them quit too, but I think I was just like fortunate to be close with people that were, pushing themselves and kept on going. And I think that was like a big inspiration for me too.
well, from a young age to be surrounded by a group of people that are snowboarding, that seems pretty crazy, especially like you're probably what, 32 now or something?
Now
31, 30,
I'm
29?
29.
Oh,
So
geez. And the only reason why I gave you that credential of being older is because you've been in the game for such a long time. It doesn't seem like, I in some ways, I'm like, you've been around for, yeah, like 15 solid years of filming a lot of epic shit. I mean, you were a part of the forum crew, dude.
yeah, I mean, I got on forum I think 11 years ago, and like Stala was a name and a person way earlier. He was kind of like, when we were kids, everybody knew that he was going to be great, So he
Well,
was sort of the first person to like start traveling, and I think he inspired a lot of other kids in the crew too, because you saw that one of your friends like sort of made it, and from a really young age he was like mascot at Arctic Challenge and like doing stuff that the other kids at the local hill wasn't, were just dreaming about.
that's super cool, and I'd love to touch base on that. When you're like a young kid and you grow up and you have like your little crew and you guys all just are obsessed with snowboarding and skateboarding, and I threw skateboarding in there because I know how much you guys love that. Um, and that's like your entire life. It's insane when one person gets the opportunity to like get a sponsorship or get this like opportunity that you guys all think is like larger than life. And there's like a little bit of envy because I remember like growing up like at same kind of thing with Jake Kuzik and Andrew Jeeves. Once that little window opened, like Jeeves got on form, you're like, whoa, it's possible to get sponsored. Like I know somebody who got sponsored, like I can do this too. And it kind of like it like everyone kind of gets a little fire. I almost feel like your little crew, you guys all get so much better because you're like, and you know each other's tricks and stuff like that. It's just a really cool thing once, somebody gets that opportunity. It just pushes the whole crew.
Yeah, and I think like for me, that wasn't something, every kid dreams about being sponsored. That's just how it is. And I don't even, I don't think I really thought about it as a thing until Stala all of a sudden, I think he'd only been snowboarding for like 2 years and he got sponsored.
Wow.
And and then also I think that sort of lit a fire with him. Like, I'm going to show him that I'm actually that good, and he just progressed like instantly and so much like all the time. And I think riding with someone that's just like putting in work and just getting better, it inspires you too. You see that it's possible to
100%.
learn tricks that a couple of years ago you didn't even think about. But yeah,
That's
it was really
crazy
cool.
because right there, the tricks you didn't even know are possible. At that phase, we still, and I'm saying we because I'm roughly the same age, there were lots of tricks that haven't been done. You know what I mean? And I mean, you could still argue that there's lots of tricks that haven't been done, but like there was pros were doing front boards to fakie still. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
making it to the end of a rail was still a trick. So like if you go to the park and like, part of the switch up era that kind of we all grew up in where you're doing like tail slide switch up 270 and 450s on and stuff like that. And, for your instance, I mean, you were a wizard at more than just jumping, but the rail game, like, wow, like I've watched all your parts before we started this podcast, and it's crazy how good you guys were at everything. Did you guys have jumps, rails, and a pipe at your local hill? Because
Yes. So our
that
local hill
explains
is
everything.
is really small. Half of it is too steep to even ride on. So it's like a couple of rails up top, and then you make it down the steep part, and there's like a sketchy jump that we never really hit, and there's a jump at the bottom or a little half pipe. And I actually remember going to that hill for the first time. So I got my first snowboard for Christmas 20 years ago. And I was actually here where I'm at right now in Hemsedal, and I learned to snowboard here with my mother. I was 9, and then I remember coming home and going to the local hill. And it's funny because at the time, like YouTube isn't a thing. Like you don't know what snowboarding is. It's just like a way to slide down the hill or whatever. And me and my friends, a couple other friends, go to the local hill I've just started, and we go down the bottom of the half pipe. And I can remember this picture, but I remember looking up at the half pipe and that it sort of like curved, like almost like a loop. I was just like, this thing is so tall. Like it was just like the most insane thing ever. And and it was just like being there and with a lot of friends, and my friends in class wrote a lot. Stala just started at the same time as me, and it just sort of all linked up to and into being this like big group of people that wrote a lot, together.
I think that, yeah, the YouTube era is so different than like when we started and people before us that I think that was such a cool way to put it. Like, I remember going to our local hill too, and I wasn't like attached to the idea of like snowboarding's cool because I followed these people on Instagram, or like
Yeah,
I want to be a part of this because of a snowboard magazine or a snowboard video I saw. I went there to do exactly what you said, to slide down the hill because it's kind of like a toboggan. And now that I've done tobogganing from like 0 to 7 years old, I'm ready for this new adventure, which is snowboarding, which I almost just did because I just chased girls around on the hill when I was like, 8 years old. I'd go there and we'd be playing tag. And then eventually, a snowboard video gets played in the lobby, or you pick up a magazine and you get your like you're opening like Pandora's box into this world of like unknown, like people dressing different and this culture that you just don't know anything of. And it's so intriguing. You're like, what are these people doing with all these baggy shit with like headphones? I remember like distinctly looking through an old Transworld magazine and seeing like photos of Danny Cass. And this is when he was like blowing up, but he was like a child still. And he was like on like this grenade company. And I was like, what is this?
yeah, exactly. Like when I started, it's not like I knew that snowboarding was cool or anything. I just like I had been skiing. Like in Norway, everybody starts cross country skiing when they're like 3, 4. It's just like what people do in the winter. And then I had like downhill skis from 6 to 9, and I was like just over it because I don't know. I didn't want to race. I didn't want to do anything, but I wanted to like jump. And then I actually like wanted to start like the ski flying because as a kid, my mom was like, absolutely not. And then I was like, I'll try the snowboarding thing. And I knew nothing about snowboarding. Like when I started, I'd never seen anybody snowboard. And my mom took me up the chairlift to the top, and I just had to figure it out for myself to get down. And I think like for it took like a solid year before it became kind of like an identity. Like in the beginning, like it was just sort of trying to discover like where can I see some snowboarding. And I remember one of my friends had like a snowboard game for a PlayStation, and in the intro, it was like a short snowboard vid, and that was like the first time seeing a snowboard video.
Do you remember the video game?
I don't, but I remember the first time I like saw snowboarding and thought it was really sick was actually on one of the first runs. You have to do this long traverse, and it's like heel side traverse too, so it's really difficult when I started. And I sort of like got pulled down to the fence, had to hike up, got pulled down to the fence, had to hike up, and I sort of like just crashed into the fence right by the park. And I saw these like people dressing in baggy clothes and whatever, like just hitting the jumps, and I was just like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Me too. It was the
And
best, dude. It was so cool, dude. Just like I love this. It's like when you first go to a park, I remember this guy, his name was like, I'm sure you remember too, your local dude that was just like the sickest shredder ever. Like to you or to me, the local hometown hero guy at that age, you're like, he's bigger than Shaun White. He's bigger than Michael Jordan. Like this guy to me his name was Matt Overall, and he could backflip, and he was wearing he had those Tech 9 bindings, those shiny ones with the crazy, I think they were like Ali Goulets or whatever like that. And I remember being like just looking at his outfit and being like, I need to be a part of that.
yeah, and like, so I think a couple of years went by, and Stahler's brother made this film called 4D, Norwegian film, and I saw that, and Stahler gave me that one, my first VHS, and that film was like everything to me. It was like all these like heroes, and It was like punk rock music, but they're wearing baggy clothes, and like it just went from being something I like to do to introduce me to music, give me an identity, give me preference, what you like, this writer, that writer, whatever, and it was really like what sparked everything: interest in music, interest in art, interest in filming, interest in photos, whatever, it all like came from snowboarding.
It's such a captivating time, especially when you're like this blank canvas at like 8 years old. You know what I mean? You don't really know anything. You think some things are cool and stuff like that, but you don't even have an identity yet. And there's a few people, you know what I mean? And it's the snowboard culture and skateboard culture and surf culture. Once you find that thing, you're just like, I don't know what it is, but I'm down 100% with what's going on over there. And then before you know it, you're on a snowboard podcast with this guy named Jody because you've devoted your entire life to snowboarding because it's so much fun.
Yeah, and I mean, like, when it started, I had no clue what I was getting into, and it just like changed, and I'm so happy I got to be a part of. I got into snowboarding at the time I got into snowboarding, searching for videos and searching for inspiration. Now it's like I feel bad for people starting now, like open their Instagram and there's somebody doing a fucking triple cork. Like, like it was just such a cool time to get into snowboarding, and I think like what was really cool is there's a lot of good riders at my local hill when I was growing up, like a lot of great like local heroes, and sort of the older crew at my local hill was like Danny Larson and those guys.
Wow, cool.
And you'd occasionally see Andreas Wigg there, and I remember meeting Daniel Frank at the skate park.
Dude,
and
heavy hitters.
And Stale's brother, at the time he was like making snowboard videos and taking a lot of photos, so occasionally like somebody in the neighborhood would see like a pro outside there and they'd be like, I saw that guy outside going into Stale's house, And like also like I think this is the first time Stale went riding. He went with his brother and his brother made this kink rail and he went with the pro guys, so we were just like, he was there. But actually Stale came back and he was like, yeah, and this guy Andreas did a backflip to rail, and everybody was just like, no, did not happen. And sure enough, a year later, the video comes out and he did a backflip onto the kink rail.
No way. Okay, so did Frode kind of take you guys under his wing like a bit?
Well, he was sort of like
Stale's brother. Was he like, did you guys get to hang with him, or were you guys like the little shrimps that he's like, you guys got to get out of here. You guys are too young. And you're like, no, I want to hang. Well,
we didn't really like hang out with all the pros and all that, but it'd be like, so Frode had all the videos in his basement. So when we started riding, we went down there and grabbed all the VHSs, and we, from never seeing snowboarding really to having all the videos in the world, So it quickly became this, so we sort of like saw his videos, and then we would hear like, oh, they've been down, this is like maybe a couple of years later, they've been down there shooting photos and they hit this thing, like they did a wall ride and we went down there and the jump was still there and then we hit it, and yes. and Frode would come sometimes to like shoot Stale on hill, and I remember if Frode was like shooting photos, it was like, all right, everybody better like turn up the heat.
Okay, so first, what was your, I just want to go back a little bit here. What was your first setup on, like, what was your first board that you got on?
I think it's called a K2 Zeppelin.
Oh, yo, yeah.
The white one, and it had some sort of like monster between the feet.
Sick. Dope.
Snake boots.
Snake? Like the brand?
Snake. No, they're just called snake boots.
Yo, that's so sick.
And some random bindings. So, I mean, I honestly, like, growing up, that was a really nice setup. But then the next board I got was like sort of like sports store board. I sort of always had ghetto setups and hand-me-down gear till I got sponsored.
Same. I was
I
buying.
was like this blue setup that Stale still makes fun of me for, and I was like, dude, I was asking for a new setup for like 3 years, and I had this hand-me-down blue setup that was just horrible. And but whatever. Looking back, like I'm stoked. It was just like hard because back then, like what you're wearing and being like cool on hill mattered so much, and I was just not.
It's it was crazy. I that guy that I brought up at the beginning there, his name was Matt. I bought a used jacket off him. I went up to them on the hill and I was like, yo, I love your outfit. If you're ever gonna like sell it. He calls me in the summer. He's like, yo, you still want my gear? I was like, yep. Bought his jacket. He probably just like ripped me off, you know what I mean? Just some little punk kid who's trying to like cop all of his stuff. I bought like his full setup. It was so sick. And then I fell on a rail. Sorry, this is bringing back. And then I destroyed it on a rail. You remember when you?
Oh,
I had no money. I grew up like, you know what I mean, like not very like ballin' styles at all. Like, you know what I mean, used stuff and like, my parents weren't going out there and buying me new gear. And when I bought all my stuff from like working for it, I destroyed it all falling on the rails, tacoing on the rails. The rust would get all over. My gear is just thrashed. I could have cried. I was so sad. I was like,
that's
no.
having like fresh gear. I mean, I'm still really careful with my gear just because of that time. Like it's just like been printed in me ever since that I'm like, if I ride a new board, I'm just like, looking if I scratch it every single run, and I'm super careful. And that just comes from being a kid and not having, too much like I just didn't really get new gear. And actually what sort of like saved me to feel cool was that when Stala's mother was cleaning out the basement of like Frodo's stuff, she like called me over and I just got to pick all his like old gear. And I was like, like 140 tall, maybe even smaller. And I had like 36 like khakis, like huge pants, and just like took everything, even if it didn't fit. I just like wanted to have the cool gear.
100%, dude. I'm like, yeah, that must have been like Christmas for you. You must have been like the high, like nothing fits, but it doesn't even matter. You're just like,
Yeah, it did not
yes.
matter at all. And like at the time, so I started snowboarding in like our like elementary school, and then moving on to middle school, we sort of mixed like classes, and I didn't really land with anybody else that snowboarded. So I was sort of like the odd one at school. But it was like at the time I thought it was fine because I didn't care, I sort of had my group of friends and what I did, and I sort of just identified with that so much that it didn't really matter.
Oh, dude, there's a very small group of us. Like I mentioned at the beginning there, I'm from a small town outside of Winnipeg in the middle of nowhere in Canada, like country town. And there was nobody really snowboarding there. There's the smallest group of like skateboarders and snowboarders, and you were either part of that or you weren't. And it's exactly what you said there. It's like you don't care about what's going around. Like the only thing in your head at that point is like, when can I get another magazine? When can I go snowboarding? When can I go skateboarding? And it's like, there is nothing else that matters. Like truly, I didn't care about anything else in the world.
Yeah, it's funny because at the time, like getting a magazine, like a international magazine in Norway was really hard. We had our own magazines and would get them, and that was really cool. But I remember my mom, like kind of random, because I never like got gifts or like stuff like randomly, but she came home with like a Transworld snowboarding one day that she found in Oslo, and that was like 300 pages, and that was like inspiration for an entire year.
That was so epic, dude. Yes, that mom plug and that magazine probably meant the world to you. You probably still know every page in that magazine.
But also, yeah, that time was really cool though. Like when I started high school and I got a bit older, and I was more like, it wasn't like we're just sliding around still. We'd sort of moved on to like building jumps and hitting rails, and we're like really into it, and like gotten a couple of VHSs that you push pause and play like 100 times to like see what tricks they're doing, and like that time.
Yeah.
looking back, like from like 14 to 16 are probably like some of the best years, just because nothing else mattered, and just I don't know, it just felt awesome at that time.
I know when you're in that moment, like, oh, if there's any 14-year-old kids listening to this, which there's probably not, but if you are, just enjoy it. It is, you're so looking forward to being old enough to have like your driver's license. And so you can, you're watching American Pie, you want to go out and drink like booze and stuff. That all doesn't matter. Just enjoy it. The only thing that you should care about is that all you have to care about in the world is going snowboarding. Like,
Yeah,
that's it.
and that stuff sucks compared to being 14 years old.
I mean, and being old, dude, and having like responsibilities and this anxiety of like pressure from society to buy like houses and have a family and do this and that. Like once you get old, dude, it's like you're like, whoa, it's not all what it cracked up to be. I should have just stayed being young.
Yes.
It's fun in its own right. But okay, so you get good at boarding, you see Frode, you get the gear, you're all decked out. What was your favorite video at that time? Like, what was your big inspiration? Like, what was like, did you guys get like a Kingpin? Did you get like the True Life? Did you get Amp? Like, what was your video?
So I started the year 2000, and then my first like video that I had was 4D Norwegian video. And if you haven't seen it, it's on Vimeo. It's amazing. It's really good. And that movie was like everything to me. But then like I think we sort of just started going through all of like Frodo's VHSs, and I remember like the first one that really like stuck and that we watched like 3 or 4 times like in a couple of nights was Technical Difficulties.
Sick.
And then it's sort of like we saw all the videos and they were kind of like one big blend. And then I remember like a year or two later, Shakedown came out, and one of my friends had Shakedown, and it was just mind blowing. Like, what has snowboarding, come to? Like, it was just, I don't think there's a video that can ever make me feel the same again.
I have the same feeling with like a few other videos. Shakedown wasn't that video for me, although I had Shakedown
which one
too.
was?
Mine was, it seems almost like kind of, my first video was Amp, and that's the one I watched like quite a bit. And then there was like Lame and stuff like that. But Video Gangs was the first video that I owned that I probably watched on. I watched that video more than any video ever. Like Video Gangs was just, I was just like Forum. I loved Forum. And I mean, I loved Laurie when he filmed that part, and like the tricks and the vibe and the song, dude, everything. That video has that exact same feel. I know that feeling you're talking about. That video, if I threw that video on right now, it does something to your soul. You're like,
yeah.
You're
well,
like,
I remember so many people wanted like the furry beanies after seeing Laurie. And
oh yeah.
And then for us, that one was big too, because that's sort of like the first, international part we saw with Andreas.
Yeah, sick part.
Yes, and so that one was for sure a big one for us too. And I think all the movies that came out at that time was just meant so much, because there's like a couple that came out a year, and that's what you watched for an entire year.
Yeah, there was like the 50 top pros, and they were in the 5 best snowboard videos, and every snowboard shop sold them. And they were all really, really good. And then there was like the low key kind of underground ones that, your local place, depending on where you grew up, like in Japan or Canada or US, that you would get. But like those big videos, like the Kingpins, the Mac Dogs, the Robot Foods, like, wow, those videos were, yeah. But Shakedown, to bring it back to Shakedown, dude. Okay, there's a lot of good parts in there. I mean, JP Walker, front board through the kink. This is how we do. Like, like Browner, Kale, like that whole video is epic. What was your favorite part?
Well, I don't know. I think like at that time, it wasn't like, because I didn't have the movie. A friend of mine did, so we went to his house like once a week to see that movie, for a while. And I think like just the entire video was so like far out from anything we could imagine. And I didn't have too many like favorites at the time. I just like enjoyed all of them.
Cool. I was a favorite kid. I was like, skip that part, backcountry, don't care, pipe, don't care, rails. Unless you were on the steel, I did not care about yours. Except for
Well,
like Devin and Mark Frank.
Well, I like to watch half pipe and I like to watch jumps, and I don't know, I was sort of into everything, and I didn't like, I wasn't a rail guy because I don't know, I just felt sketchy on rails, and I'm sure I was pretty sketchy on jumps and half pipe too. But it was just like, I don't know, I liked it all, and I think it wasn't until like quite a bit later till I was maybe got a bit more into the jumping side than the rails.
Which is, to me, it's just I don't really think of you as anything. I think that you're definitely one of the most talented snowboarders to ever strap in. I mean, take that for what take that however you want. But yeah, I've been following your boarding career close for the last 10 years as a big fan, and holy, like, some years I think you're a rail guy. I'm like, oh, he's definitely a rail guy. Then the next year I'm like, well, he's kind of a pipe dude. And then I'm like, oh no, like, X Games, he's a contest guy. And then the year after I'm like, no, he's moving into a POW guy this year. It's like, I don't even know what you're gonna film like moving forward. Like, what are you gonna pick? You've juggled around filming video parts of all types. I don't even know who you are.
I appreciate that, but I think snowboarding is, for me, it's just been sort of, I've always like tried to develop, not in like your skills or whatever, but what I do, like if you, I never feel like if I do a trick or hit a spot and do a trick or whatever, I want to do the same again. And then sort of just always moves. And like, I think originally, like, I was more into jumping. Like, I'd hit rails, but they're sort of on the way down to the jumps. It was, but like as a kid, I wasn't like too into the rails, and that like I grew up in a small hill close to the city. So what was the natural thing, or the thing we could do that the guys did in the videos, was rails, because some of the rails that they hit in the videos were close to our house, and we could like go there, and we saw somebody riding a street rail, and we could go there, and the drop-in was still there and the jump was still there, so it sort of made it possible to ride like street or urban or whatever. But I think I was always more into jumping and that part.
I mean, jumping when you're a kid is it's definitely the most fun when you first start. Like, the rails you don't understand how to get into I skated before I snowboarded, and it wasn't the same. The rails just weren't the same as when you're skateboarding. Like, I could front board on a skateboard, but then on a snowboard, I'm like slipping out on my toe edge and smacking my shins. I'm like, I'm going to go over to the jump and do the biggest mute stiffy ever. Like,
yes, but it's just like such an easy way to get a great feeling. I feel like if you ride rails, you sort of have to know what you do for it to feel good. On a jump, just being weightless and catching air is the best feeling ever. Like, and I think like that sort of made me into half pipe too, because if you ride the pipe, it's like okay to just do straight airs and grabs.
Big time.
I
mean, the pipe is one thing that I'm devastated that growing up, we did not have a half pipe for 10,000 kilometers around us. No pipe. I'd never even rode one until I was like 18 years old, until I moved to Whistler. I've seen them in videos, but I was like, they just don't exist where I'm from. We have one jump, and it's so bad. Sometimes the groomer would just roll over the top of the takeoff. So we would have to take our own shovels and actually finish where the takeoff is supposed to end, or else there was just no real end to the jump. You didn't know when to pop. You're like,
well, that was like the good days though, like I imagine we grew up like in a similar situation, and I remember, early season, like they make the big like snow cannon piles, and you just build a jump from that, and you set up a rail here, and you just make your own park.
That is one thing. No kids, I think there's a very small amount of kids from around the whole world that we would show up to the park, and if we wanted it to be good, me, Kuzik, my friend Walker, we'd get there in the morning with shovels, sometimes shovels that we brought ourselves because the shovels at the actual park sucked, and we would just build everything, or the day would suck. It's like
Yeah.
nothing existed. We had to like make our own park, make our own jumps. Like they would groom every few days. Our place would be completely ice. And if we wanted a sick park, we had to make one.
Yeah, but
Like
that was
Kuzik built a box for our park. Kuzik and his dad they're like, it'd be so sick to have a box. So Jake just made one and brought it to the hill and donated it when he was like 10.
that's sick. Yeah. Yeah, that's like I don't know. That time though, it's like as much as I wanted a good park to be built, looking back, that time was really, really special. And
So
and
good.
like I was really lucky to have like an older crew at the local hill, and you know we had this like bus station like a couple of kilometers away where you could sort of lift up the fence, and they like lifted up the fence and like brought it to the hill, and made it a rail, and and it was sort of just so homemade. And I remember like the best part was when they've made all the snow would have made jumps everywhere on the mountain, and before they even made the park, it would be a park in every like snow pile there was, because everybody built a jump, so you'd get like 10 hits on the way down.
The best part is when you build that stuff and then you're like, who's gonna hit it first? And the rail's like kind of wobbly, but like it's not, or like you don't really know if the gap from the two, like you have the snow blower that makes the mound here, and then you have the snow blower that makes the mound here, and it's kind of a gap, and you don't know if you have enough speed, and you're like,
And the
somebody
snow is
has
super
to guinea
sticky.
it. Yeah, exactly. And the snow is sticky, and then your buddy backflips it who doesn't normally do much. It's like those vibes are, yeah, unreal.
Yeah, I was never a hit things first type of guy.
Yeah, me neither. I would be like, yeah, I gotta go to the washroom, and then everything would be all sorted out. It'd be like, perfect. First sponsor. How did that come to happen? What age? I mean, Stale, you said got laced up first,
yeah,
but
he got sponsored really early by Burton in Norway, and I think that only lasted a year because he got on Santa Cruz, like actually Santa Cruz, like
Santa Cruz.
not like a rep. But I remember going over to his house the year before, he got a board or two, and we were just blown away that he got free stuff. And I remember going over to his board or to his house, and in the hallway there's a box, and then made a board specially for him, and it was like 7 of them, and I was just
Wow.
like, wow.
7?
Yeah. And then like a little bit later, Santa Cruz dropped this like promo video, and he was in it, and like I don't think I was like ever like that competitive or jealous, but I was just like, you are making it, like it was just like awesome to watch. And for sure it sparked something in me too. But I was probably like 14, and I remember going down to the mall. It's in a city like close by, like 10 minutes away, and they're opening a new skate and snowboard shop there. And I walked in, and the guy that was like setting everything up, he was like, oh, I've seen you before. I saw you at this like pipe jam one time. And I was like, cool. Well, if you want to, you can give us a video and maybe you can be on the team.
No.
And I was like, I just remember being like, oh shit. And winter was done. I couldn't film anything new. And I just like went back and put together whatever I had. And they gave me like, a free board and a setup and a free skateboard. And it was really cool. And I actually think they lined me up with this guy that had Oakley in Norway at the time. And I got a couple of like different pairs of goggles, and yeah, that was really cool.
Dude, when you're from when you don't have a lot growing up, like I was mentioning, like I didn't like, we were going to the used clothes store and stuff like that. Like I remember my first brand new t-shirt, I was like 14 years old or something like that. And I was like, I never took it off. It was like an Adidas t-shirt. And when you get a free, I remember my mom, like, I got sponsored by Mission 6 and they sent me a box, and it was similar to that Stale box. I don't know if the early 2000s, they just screwed up orders or something like that, but I got like 6 Mission 6 jackets and 6 pairs of pants and 6 hoodies and 6 t-shirts and like all this stuff. And this huge box comes to my house, and I'm like, this is what being sponsored's like. This is the best. And I didn't even like, and I sucked. I sent like a promo video to this guy in California, Kyle Kennedy, and he just like laced me up, and I was like blown away. And when you get 7 boards, or one of your, like Kuzik, for example, to me is looking like you got 6 jackets, but then he starts getting stuff and you're getting stuff. And it's like, once you get those free pair of Oakleys, like you said, from a local shop and the free board, you're like, you're like fired up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it pushed me too. I think, like, and also I think a big thing for me, like the entire like growing up, was riding with Stale. He was 2 years younger than me. He was just like, and I remember like I was still like sort of hitting like rails, and I just hit like my first street rail, and I was super sketchy. And he comes back and he's ridden this way bigger rail, and I asked like, "What did you do?" And it was like back lip, and I just remember being mind blown. And like I think the younger generation at our local hill always like looked at him, because he went from being like that little kid that got a free board from Burton the year before, or not like the little kid, but he was like really young, and he got he was riding well, but then the next year he was just like riding as good as the best guys at our local hill. It just like giant leap, and I think that really inspired like a lot of the kids on the hill too.
The click is a crazy year, dude. When you see, I mean, you grow up with your friends, their tricks, and then the next year, there's always that one year that a few of your friends, it just like all works out. Like they're
Yeah.
obsessed with this thing, and it's just like you see them do the switch front board the year before, and it's like not that good. But then the year after, it's like switch front blunt 270, switch front blunt, switch up, switch back 270, and you're like, whoa, and it like pushes you. But like it took me a while to do that unlock where like, yeah, like Stale for you, or like that year is like special when you watch it live, because how talented he was the year before. And then exactly what you said, like he comes back from that rail, and the best pros in the world aren't even like backlipping street rails, like not too many of them. And he comes
No.
back and he says he laced a back lip on a street rail. You're like, and that's when everyone counted all the stairs too. You're like, how many stairs? And they're like, a 12 stair, and you're like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And it was just like really cool to watch, and like he'd go like to get invited to a shoot and get invited over here, and he came back and he always done something new. And I was just there at my local hill being like, well, I rode my local hill, fell in a couple of front threes this week, and what did you do? And he's like, well, I cab 7 this huge jump, or back 7, or whatever, or went to be a mascot at the Arctic Challenge, and I went like 5 meters high, So I think like that really like unlocked and sparked a lot for everybody else on the hill too,
I mean, big time. That inspiration must have been, it probably, without all you guys knowing, or you probably do know, but like him having that older brother with that VHS collection, the shop sponsor for you, you don't really realize it at the time, but the obsession mixed with like this snowball that's rolling is just like, and then you guys form RK1, and then you guys are like, we're the best snowboarders in the world. Like, when did you guys realize you're better than everybody else?
Well, this was probably at like 14, 15. That I got sponsored at like 14, 15. And then I'm there for a year. And then I get picked up by the Burton rep in Norway the next year.
Yeah, that's my dog. Yeah, that's what I want to hear. Those front threes are paying off.
Well, at this point, I'm like sort of getting better, or a little bit better, and like I'm able to do, back 7s and cab 7s, and maybe like a back 9 or something, and I'm sort of starting to like compete around Norway. That's like, I wasn't like too into competing in the beginning, and then like a competition sort of came to my local hill, and I entered, and it was pretty fun, and I started joining and going around Norway. And at this point, I'm at like 15 years old probably, and then I moved to Geilo, which is the mountain school in Norway, when I was 16.
There you go. What was that? Mountain school.
So
Who's
it's
there?
like it's like a sports school where you can like travel and still, you know, get through with class and it's a for me, I wasn't really thinking about going because I wasn't allowed to, because it was moving away when I was like 16 or whatever. But then I went there the year before for like a pipe contest, and I actually met Freddie Perry. And he was just like, "Dude, you should start here. It's the sickest." And then a couple of my other friends from home started, and I was like, I was allowed to go, and I got into the school. It was like 6 people a year, I think, like snowboarders, and when I started there, it was sort of, I don't know. In the beginning, I thought it was a bit serious, and I wasn't too down. And then like the guy, like the counselor, the main guy, he was just like, "Whatever, come cruise with me, have fun." And that really, he really like, he's like an older guy. He used to be like pro in the 90s, and he just like cruises and has fun every day. And I like rode with him for a bit, and I remember it just sparked something. And that year is like when I actually like found out that this is, I want to like, you know, see where this can go or whatever.
And that would have been at what age did you kind of click like I want to kind of take this somewhere? Because there's always there's
Well,
like that point, you know, everyone kind of reaches where like they're like, this is different for me. This is like I'm gonna take a shot at this.
well, so at this point, I'm riding for Burton in Norway. I'm like 16, and then the next year I'm 17. I get on. So Thomas Harstad, he had been a pro for, I don't know, like 8 to 10 years or something, and he started working for DC in Norway. And this is the year they're going to start making boards. And I got on that, and he just came off being a professional, and he knew how to like deal with photographers and filmers. And he sort of like made this like Norwegian riding for a rep thing into something completely different, because he hired a photographer, he connected you with the magazines, he sort of like got your name a little bit out there, you know.
A
And
building block.
yeah, and
That's
like things
dope.
that I had never thought about, and he sort of did that for me. And that year was kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to call it like a breakthrough year, but a year where all of a sudden from entering the contest, I like won a couple, and I went to Locks for the first time for the European Open. And at the time it was like actually open. You go there, and it was like 4 heats of 40 down to 10 in each heat, 40 in total, 40 down to 10 in the qualifications, then 30 like pros come in, and it's 40 again down to 16 in the final. I made it like all the rounds through to finals, and all of a sudden I was like riding with my heroes, you know.
Wow. That event must have been insane. That's like a
Yes.
wow. You
And
have to
it's
beat that many rounds and then you're in there with the top dogs and you're like,
yeah.
"Oh hell yeah."
And it was funny because this is you know, at the time, like I was 17, we're in school. I was like with a bunch of good friends. Like there's a lot of names I should like mention along the way too, but I was like going to class with, you know, like Torgeir Bergram and and like a bunch of other guys, amazing snowboarders. And we went there, and for us it was like, all right, well, first like trip by ourselves to another country, let's party. And we went there. I remember like the guys started drinking beer on the train. I was like, are we really doing this? And I was like, and they were like, sure. And sure enough, it turned into like a 10-day festival for us. And would be we were,
Love
it's
it.
funny because now I like hardly drink, and but at the time I was like 17. So many new impressions were in this city with all like the professional snowboarders or whatever, and at this contest, and would get up on the mountain at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning for practice, you know, be done in the afternoon, go to the après ski, get hammered, and ride
Just
down.
living the life.
Yeah, get down at like 6 o'clock, pass out till 10, go party till 3 in the morning, then go back to sleep and up on the mountain at 8.
Literally living a rock star's life at that point.
Well, we were 8, no, we were 17, and just like, I don't know. I think it was just a lot of new impressions, and we were just really enjoying it. But that contest went really well, and that sort of like gave me a little like help. Um, After that, I sort of like got onto the DC European team, and the next year I got on forum.
And then, okay, the forum thing. How did the forum thing happen? Because
Well,
at
so
the time, like that was like, growing up for you, that's a
yeah,
huge company.
well, it went from, like being snow. It's so weird looking back, and I have so many people to thank along the way because I got so much help, and like people helping me out, and but it was like really strange going from like getting some boards from the rep and then onto DC, and all of a sudden I got like quite a few offers that next year, and one of them
Yes.
was forum.
That's a
And
hard one to say no to.
yeah, and it's funny because I got like way better offers too, but it was just like I was sort of like I didn't imagine myself to be here, 29 years old, and sitting here talking to you.
No,
I,
none of us did.
I sort of like imagined to like maybe give snowboarding a year or two and see what happened, and then go to school or whatever. So it just sort of like changed this full idea I had of life really quick. And I sort of looked at it like if I ride for forum, even though I don't make much money from it, I will actually look back and know that I've participated and been on one of my favorite companies ever, and I'll just be happy about that. And that's fine. Then I can like, you know, go to school or do whatever I'm going to do and be happy about what I did, instead of having a little bit more money and writing for another company.
Bucket list. Just like that. I mean, yeah. At that point, you're
Yeah.
probably
So
like, this is everything I've ever wanted and more.
yeah, so that I was sort of like, if I do this, regardless if it works out or not, I've done like something that it's been a dream my entire childhood. And at the time, like I don't know, like one of the other ones were like Nike 6.0, and they offered like quite a bit more money. And for sure, like for a kid like me, I was broke. I had a big student loan. I was just like, you know, like I'd like to make some money, but at the same time I was just like, well, nothing can like like for it was never like even a thought really.
That's sick. You were like Nike 6.0, which was whack. I mean, like, I remember when people were on Nike when Nike came out, and then the Nike 6.0 thing, I was like, I didn't really know what the two were. Like, one was like, yo, you're on Nike, like Jordan and stuff like that. 6.0, I felt like it was like this Chuck E. Cheese goof off side, like, I don't know, like
It
not
was
dope
weird.
at all. So I'm glad you picked Forum.
Yeah, well, I picked Forum, and like a 2-year contract, and they also like, I sort of like gotten to that point from competing, and in Norway we sort of get not like thought, but it's pretty clear that a lot of the Norwegian guys like make it to America and make it to wherever and onto companies and stuff in the beginning because they're competing, and I sort of done that, and I always really wanted to like film or be a part of a film, and Forum was like, well, if you start writing for us, you can come to some shoots and maybe be in the next like Youngblood section. And I was just like,
Sold. I'm in. And that was Vacation, correct?
fuck it.
Oh, that was Fuck It. Yeah, you're right. That was your first one. And then Vacation was after.
Yeah. So I mean, like at
So
the
you had
time,
2 years with I forgot about the Fuck It part. Because you
I
and
was there for
Rusty and
3.
Austin Sweeten and like Cam Pierce, I think. 3.
Yeah,
Oh,
I was on
wow.
Forum for 3. So first year was fuck it, and like I got some travel budget and a little bit of money to live, and I mean, for me, looking back, it wasn't like a huge deal or anything, but for me, it was like at the time I was like, dude, someone is putting money into my account every month, like.
Because that's old and dated and Forum's not even a company anymore. Hit us with what was the number?
Well, I think.
Like $1,000 a month or something?
Yeah,
Or
I think something like that. Yeah, plus a little bit of travel. But at the time, the dollar to Norwegian kroner was like quite different, so it's worth like 30% less than what it's now. So it was for sure like money, and like it helped me out with rent, and like
Big
I had to
time.
take up a bit less student loan, and all the, like I felt like I was just like had a lot of money, you know. I was
Oh
just
yeah.
like buying everything I wanted, but what
Yeah.
did I really want at the time? Like I didn't have like any expensive hobbies, you know.
When you get that
So
first contract, you probably were just like, I'm like, sub JP, I'm part of the crew. I'm a rock star too.
so yeah, and like Forum just came out with Forever, and that movie was, I thought that movie was really really sick. And you know, like being a kid competing, like your first year on or the first couple of years on, there's sort of just like, you see, does he fit in with the crew? Like, you know,
Big
how
time.
does he function on shoots or whatever? And they flew me out for like a park shoot in like Pennsylvania and New Hampshire, and that was also Austin Sweeten's first shoot.
Oh wow.
So
And
we
then was
went.
that the flaming log shoot and stuff
Yes,
like
when
that?
we got
Yeah.
the cover.
Yeah.
And it was really really cool looking back, you know. Like I went there, and you know, like for me it wasn't, I don't think I was disappointed, but you know, I got sent to a park shoot to do the same tricks that I'm supposed to do competing, you know,
Yeah.
kind of. So it was cool, but I didn't know if I got anything. Like I just rode. It wasn't like, can I check the clips or whatever, you know. They
Yeah.
just like filmed, and I rode there, and I was supposed to go to the next one, but there was like a volcano erupting in Iceland, so you couldn't fly across the Atlantic, you know. So
Shit, dude.
so I didn't go for that next one, and this is my last year at high school, and you know, high school was over, moved back home for the summer, and all this, you know, and they flew me out, or I was in New Zealand actually, and Austin went there, and he broke his hand, so he couldn't go helling with the other guys. So I got his spot, and I got to go helling with Andreas and Pat Moore and Jake Welsh. And
Wow. That must
I
have been a
got,
trip.
yeah, I got really lucky. You know, like I'd never like hit anything in the backcountry before, and
Yeah, you guys
I'm up.
crushed, I remember. Or you
Well,
what clip did you have again there? I remember you had a
well,
one really sick clip.
I got so lucky. Like I'd never like hit like a big backcountry jump, just like small ones that you build. Like that's not really backcountry jumps, you know. And we're there on top of these like insane mountains, and I remember
Yes.
Pat going first, I think, and I think he fell, and then Andreas went, and I think he fell too, and I was like, well, what's the easiest to do in pattern? And for some reason, just front five just seemed to be a good trick, and I did a
Front
front five.
five?
Yeah, I don't know why I'd never do that
That's a
anymore.
hard backcountry trick.
Yeah, and I got up, and next run I was like, what do I do now? I was like, I'll try like front nine, but like double dip it a little bit. And I'd only done that one time before, and I went for it, and I landed first try, and it was like the most like lucky incident ever, because there's like a heli flying next to me filming me, and it's like my first time hitting a backcountry jump, and I'm there with Jake Welsh, Andreas, and Pat Moore, like guys I saw in videos a year before, you know.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so it's like, it was just felt so bizarre, and I got a few tricks or whatever on that trip, and I went to the premiere, and we did a premiere tour, and it was just like really really cool to be a part of, you know. And I'm so thankful to, you know, all the guys on the team, everybody working there. They're so like welcoming, and took me under their wing, and yeah, it was such a special time.
That was it. Form to me was a pretty serious company because Form had like the stigma still around, like the Forum 8.
Yeah.
And which was like, when Forum makes a movie, it needs to be at a certain standard. It has to be like A clips. If your shit sucks, if you hand drag, if it's not big enough, if you didn't do the trick right, your footage is cut. We don't care. And I always felt like Forum had like that vibe. Like once Forum was making a movie, I was like, these dudes are going to have to go for it. Did you ever feel like there was a lot of pressure when you were out riding with them? Or did you feel like because you were so talented, it was easy? Or were you like, did you feel like that Forum pressure? I felt like they were kind of
I
gnarly.
think like talent is like a like weird word, because it's not like everything came easy, but I had like a a time in my life where I got so obsessed with snowboarding. It was the only thing I thought about. And I remember like seeing an interview with someone. I think it was like a skateboard magazine or whatever, and it said everything you can imagine you can do, you can pretty much do. And like I would just like spend time imagining things. So, and that sort of like led me, this was a couple of years before, but when I got to the forum situation or filming with forum, I felt pressure, but it wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't too bad. It was like, it's funny because if I film clips at home with my friends and I'd show them to them, they'd be like, small, small, small. So,
Wow.
I felt like whenever I went with them, if they built a jump, sure, big enough, like they built it.
Yeah,
So,
they were big enough.
so,
I
so
mean,
I didn't like, I don't know. I've never really been into big jumps either. So it was like a weird thing and a weird time. But I
well,
was,
they had, yeah, forum, big jumps, dude. Park
yeah,
shoots.
I was lucky though, because we had this rule that the youngest guy goes first, and Austin Sweeten is actually 4 days younger than me.
That was the rule? That
Yeah.
sucks, dude. Because I feel like they had like, there's the forum team that's the rail crew, and so they go on the street missions, and then there's the backcountry crew, you know what I mean? Like Pat, John Jay, Jake Welsh, Blavelt, and then there's you guys, which are the young bloods, kind of like that. They're like, oh, okay, we're building a giant park shoot, and you guys have to go ham because this is the
Yeah.
park section.
Yeah. Well, I think
And you went ham. Like some of your clips in there are fucking crazy.
pressure was, I mean, the pressure was there. You knew that, you went on like a trip or two in the spring, and it was to do what they expected you to do. It was sort of like a bit of work, scary work in a way. Like,
No, I recall those clips clearly, and if I were you flying in again, like you said, 3 years filming for forum, you know what you're getting into. You have to go into a different headspace when you're there.
yeah, and I think I don't know. It was such like a strange time, and looking back, I just remember I was more like nervous just to be there, At the same time as it is big jumps and everything, I'm also sitting down at the lodge with some of my favorite snowboarders, and there's just too many impressions at the same time.
That's a good time. I mean,
So it was really cool though, and like first year was fuck it, the next one was vacation, and vacation was a little more chill because I sort of felt like I'd built up a bit of, I don't know, that they let me come for more shoots. So I felt like they were sort of happy with what I was doing, and I wasn't so, because I'm quite insecure about myself, and the first year really helped.
big time. I feel like most snowboarders are, especially like you said, when you're hitting that jump, you get that front nine, you get a little bit of that, your insecurity, you're like, chink, a little piece goes off. They use the clip in the movie, you get invited back, and then you're starting to build a little bit of what we all, I feel like, want more than ever is to feel like at home with our brands. You know what I mean? There's nothing better than feeling like a family kind of on a trip, and you don't have that like, oh, nobody wants me here, they don't like my snowboarding, and you don't fit. But at that
Yeah.
point, I feel like you really started growing to being a piece
Well,
of
it
that.
was cool because I'm like, I don't know, I just different, and I don't like hang out as much. I don't party as much, and I feel like sort of odd, and a bit insecure and everything. But they just like they made I didn't have to like try. I was just myself, and they're really welcoming and sort of like gave me a place in the crew, and it was really really cool, and I'm really thankful to have had that as my first like experience. They're just the best, and I can't thank all the guys on the team there enough, because that really like made me be like, oh, I want to keep doing this for longer, because at this time at this point I've been with Forum for like a couple of years, and I was sort of like imagining by now I should probably be doing something else, but well, I'm still here.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, if those first few trips would have went different, and people would have made you feel more insecure about yourself, like, look at this loser, he doesn't want to party tonight, or like they got you more in your head, you might have just been like, you know what, snowboarding and the culture and stuff like that's not what it's hyped up to be. But like you said, if you're a little different, and then everyone's accepting of that, especially at a time when snowboarding wasn't really fully adapted into this new wave that it is today, where I feel like the snowboard culture is finally really clued into being really accepting that all people are different and
Yeah.
everyone's a little different. And there's just a level of acceptance with that. In 2010 and stuff like that, I'll call snowboarding out. It just wasn't that accepting. You know, I mean, if you went somewhere, you were expected to ride really well, go really big, and party really hard and not complain
Yeah.
about anything else.
And this is like also around the time where like the internet sort of comes around and people start like, you put out an edit or something, people give you shit, and it was such like a not nice time in snowboarding. But I gotta actually give one shout out to one guy that helped me a lot through this, was Andreas Wig, because he really took me under his wing. He was like, when we're like going on trips together, he was like, well, you come ride with me, and he'd hire hotel rooms for me to stay in and just take care of me, like when I was in America and wherever. And that really, having Norwegian guy that, is Andreas Wig, that a few years ago was just like this far out, like guy I saw in video gangs, helping me out, and sort of he's he'd party, but he'd not be hungover the next day, and he sort of like thought through everything he did, and he sort of took me under his wing, and that helped a lot too.
But yeah, you kind of like built yourself like a mentor, and I mean, being the way you are, you probably looked up to him, being like, I like the way that guy does this. Because you see
Yeah,
the people who are getting up in the morning completely piled out, not being able to perform, or not even perform. I feel like that's bad, but they're just completely obliterated, hungover. You're like, I don't really fit with that. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
and it's not like I didn't want to have fun, but I think at the time I saw this as this amazing opportunity to go, and I don't know, I just like never at this point I didn't get too much into the partying and hanging out. That was like maybe a little bit later that sort of like came to me, you know?
I mean, and then after, okay, there's two clips because I watched those forum videos um, before this. There's two clips I wanted to bring up though. You have a back five off the heels on a park shoot, and it's just absolutely crazy. And then you have a cab five off your toes, on like a huge cab five off your toes to a flat down box, and then it's like so buck, like
Well,
definitely
the
something.
back five of the
Yeah,
heels? Where's
yeah.
that from?
Um, you have a heart. So no, never mind. I mixed that one up.
Oh.
That's Insight. You have a
Oh
back.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
later.
Yeah, that's later.
Yeah.
But and then you have the hard way back 270. That's what I meant to say. Onto that C rail. Because that
Yeah.
at that time when that clip came out, I remember that was in the teaser, and I remember being like, who the fuck is this kid? Because I didn't know the hard. It was like right around the time that the fakie back tail and the nollie back tail 270 came in, and a few people were doing that. I don't even know if I've seen, maybe Cale Hill I'd seen do it, but you did a hard way back 270 onto a C rail. It's
Well,
insane.
that one was a lot of luck, I think, and honestly,
You got to
that one,
stop saying shit's luck, dude. At one point, you just got to realize
Well-
that you just on another level, dude.
no, I'll tell you the story of the hard way back to, like, this is right as, like I like a little bit before this, I start seeing people doing like the nollie back tails and switch back tails and 180s on and hard way back twos and hard way switch back twos. I feel like they sort of like came at the same time,
Yeah.
and I couldn't do any of them. Like, I can't do a nollie back tail 270 or to save my life. And but for some reason, like, I couldn't really back two on either, because the technique of like sort of twisting your legs hadn't really like appeared yet on my radar, so a back two to me at the time was just like gap to rail 360 tap to rail,
Exactly.
so I was like doing like nollie back threes of like side hits and little rollers, and I was like, oh, this sort of like feels nice. And I think I'd just only done it on like a tube a few weeks before, and somebody filmed me with a GoPro, and this was before everything landed on Instagram or the internet, and I remember showing like Stale and stuff, and I was home for 3 weeks in the middle of the winter, and Frode filmed it, and we were going to hit something in Oslo, and Stale had a bruised heel or something, so he wasn't riding, and we went to this rail, and we're gonna hit it, and we get kicked out, and we go to this other spot that's just like this, like 3 like black handrails. They're really famous in Oslo, Tøyenparken, and it was like snowed in, no stairs, jump on both sides, and I was like, well, I could sort of try the hard way back to here to see if it'd be possible, because Stale was like, do a hard way back too, and I was like, no, of course not. And I started trying it on that rail, and I didn't get it, but I like, did the takeoff a couple of times, and it sort of felt all right, and we went back to the other rail because the kindergarten next to it was like finished, so we could ride it. And I did like a board slide and a back lip, and it's like I didn't feel like there was much more I could do, and Stale kept going like, try hard way back too. And I gave it a couple of tries, and the first ones I like land on my back in the stairs, and I had one where I hit my heel edge into the rail and flipped down, and then like after maybe like, I don't know, close to 10 tries, all of a sudden like I came around and I saw the rail and I landed on it, and I felt like I tucked my right knee a little bit to like go with the curve, and it just like worked out. And it was just it was lucky because I haven't done one since.
Who cares? That clip's amazing, dude. I remember seeing that and being like, I don't know if maybe someone had filmed one on, I don't know who though, but like, I feel like Torstein was doing a lot of them in the park and stuff like that.
He was really good at the nollie backtail 270s and stuff. So obviously like seeing him, and I'd seen him do like similar tricks, and it's just like that's sort of what sparked me trying like that trick, like nollie 360s on rollers. And yeah, it was honestly luck, because I haven't done a good one before it, and I haven't done any since. It's just like, it's sort of a trick that just worked out on that rail, and that its curve doesn't matter that much, you know what I mean? Because it's not like a U rail, it's just curves a little bit.
Yo, dude, one and done's dope, dude. I'm down with that. You got Buck, you did the hard way back 270. That trick's not even one of my favorites. Now it's like just kind of, it'd be hard to pull that trick off in a way that I would like it. So at that time, you pulled it off when it needed to be done, and we're moving on. You know what I mean? Like who cares?
Funny though is, I remember showing it to the guys at Forum when I went on like the park shoot in the spring, and all the filmers and everybody, except the riders, but the filmers and stuff was just like, that's cool, but it's pretty small.
What?
And
they don't know.
But it landed in there, and it was funny because it actually landed on like the top 10 tricks of the year or something. that next or the following fall or whatever on the transfer site. And
classic old filmers and photographers, just sticking to their roots. They're like, it's got to be a long rail, and the stairs need to be completely dry. And you're like,
yeah,
like,
no, but
actually it's a C rail, and that trick's never been done before.
But it was cool. And looking back, I'm, like, it's not a trick that I would ever after that like pick to do anywhere, or
I'm glad you didn't
potentially like seeing that much either. I just like, it just happened there and then, and that was it.
It's the perfect wrap up trick, because honestly, eventually, if you're gonna do hard way back 270s one time, you're gonna fuck up and it's gonna suck.
Well, I did have that like worst case scenario on that rail 2 tries before.
I'm so glad it's done now. Please don't try that again. Okay,
No,
one thing I wanted to touch base on though is Xgames. You did it for 4 years in a row, if I'm correct.
I think maybe 5.
Yeah, 4 or 5. What? Okay, maybe it's 5. But dude,
well,
what? Okay, so you were like full Stale for a bit, going in. You never took home like a gold, but you were always in like the top 10. Even you got a 4th in there.
It's funny because
did you want the gold?
No. Well,
are you?
I was like introduced to snowboarding in Norway. Like competing is like the thing, like you grow up in winter sports competing. It's just like Norway salute winners way too much. And so you get brought up that competing is the way to go with everything. And I think it's not that I not wanted to compete. I sort of like did it, but I was never that competitive. I never had that like edge to like, I couldn't like give an extra gear to like just pull something out of the bag. I was never like that, and I never wanted to like practice my tricks. I enjoyed being scared of a trick, doing it, and being done. It's not like I want to go back and do it 9 more times so I'm safe for a contest, So when I started competing, it was sort of still like mainly 900s and 1080s, and an occasional like somebody pull out a 1260 or whatever for like the first couple of years. And so it hasn't advanced to the triple corks and stuff yet, right? So I competed for a couple of years, and then in 2012, I think, or 2011, I like won this contest in Italy, and like I was made a bit of money, and
How much was a bit of money? I love the money stuff.
Yeah, well, I made $15,000.
15? A little bit of money? My boy.
No, well, that's a lot of money. If somebody gave me $15,000 now, I'd be, you know what I mean? But I made, if you look at the scheme of living for 30 years, it's not like, that money helped me out for the rest of that season. And like, it was a lot at the time. And that's why I like kept going, because I was like, holy shit, I made $15,000 and I've never seen a check like this before, So I think that also like maybe like convinced me a little bit, because all of a sudden I was like doing well. So my sponsors were happy. I just sort of felt like, I don't know. I just like ended up competing, and the next year I won like a bigger event, and it's not that I not wanted to compete, but I wanted to get more out of my winter. I didn't want my winter to be that you look on the TTR schedule in October and where you're going to be for every single week of the year, and then it's done. So I did contests for like a couple of years, and I think around 2013, I sort of like, I did well in 2012, and all of a sudden, all like these people, like team managers, everything, like I felt like they expected that from me, and I was like not in the best place personally, and I don't know, it's just like it's like so easy to keep doing, and because it's there, you just have to go to another place for that next week, and you know where to go, and you don't have to do anything in terms of planning or organizing with filmers or photographers. So I sort of feel like I just ended up doing it to do it in a way.
When you say you weren't in the best personal space, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think so. Form happens. It's like form happened, and I was like great for a year, and that next year, I sort of at home like get a bit more introduced to like partying, and I'm in a position where I wasn't working, when I was home, so I had all summer off, and snowboarding was sort of like, it was only in the winter, so that gives you like, 5 months to hang out and party and be like all the other kids for the entire summer, and then also I think like going on trips. So the later years of form, I like got way more into partying, and that just like it sort of just led me down this like downward spiral where in the end I figured out like I wasn't really happy, and I didn't even know why I was snowboarding. And I think by 2013 I was like pretty over like everything. It turned really quick.
And you realized that it wasn't the life for you, because I mean that's awesome that you got a grasp on it though, like quickly, because I mean some people end up wasting 10, 15, 20 their whole life partying. And if you were like wake up one day hungover, there's
Well,
always that one moment where you wake up in like the bed, I feel like, and you're hungover and you feel like shit and you're like, what? For what? Why?
Well, I think from 2011 to 2013, 14, that was like that's like when like I got a bit older, and after the first year on form, I didn't feel like I had to prove myself too much, and so I'd obviously with time like start hanging out and partying a little bit more, and I'd get home and I'd see my friends that I haven't seen in a long time, and I'd party with them, and there's like always like a party somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
And I think also like, you know, things were going well, so I didn't see that I was doing stuff that was not good for me, you know?
Yeah.
So it was a couple of years that was like, and I was like still competing, so I just sort of had to show up these exact weeks, and the rest of the year you could do whatever you want. And I felt like my snowboarding life and my life, like I did, you know, they're two separate things in a way. It was like I sort of did what I had to do, and then to just be be a kid and do what all my other friends that didn't snowboard do, you know. And yeah, so going on, like I kept like competing, and but I also just tried to give myself more time to do things that I thought was fun too.
Like skateboarding, because you're incredible at skateboarding.
Well, I think like as a kid, like we didn't have like indoor skate parks, and we didn't have snowboarding in the summer, so it's just normal that we did, you know, it was like season based. Like we'd go skateboarding in the summer, snowboarding in the winter, and they sort of just went hand in hand, you know.
And what, so like you did contest though, X Games until
Yes.
2017, if I'm correct, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. 2016, so 2015, I think was the last year I like competed, and then I had like good rankings from the years before, so they invited me to the next X Games. So 2016, the only contest I did was X Games, and then I
And are
got
you
invited.
liking it still, or are you kind of like
No.
burnt?
At this, no. So I was burnt way before this. So like 2000 and I ride for Forum till 2012. Forum go under, I start riding for Burton, and this is sort of when like, you know, I go from being in like a really supportive crew that I really like to be on Burton, and it's just completely different to anything I've ever imagined, you know?
Yeah, like you're lost. You don't feel like a family member anymore. You're just like,
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I feel like Forum was sort of like, you know, helping you to be yourself as much as you can. Well, Burton sort of was just like, you have to fit this and this and this, and try to like, you know, like they paid well, so of course they sort of demand that, but it just wasn't for me, you know. And I sort of felt like I didn't fit in, and this was, I was just like bumming for like 2 years when I was there,
Burton
and yeah.
paycheck. Let's you don't ride for Burton. It's been long enough. No one's gonna get mad at you. What was the Burton paycheck like? What was the B pan?
Well, I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this.
Why, you still associated with them? I just think it's
No.
curious because most kids like don't really know what 10 years was like for people that were as good as you and stuff like that. And it's all about comfortability. So if you're not into it, let's just move on.
Well,
It's not a big
well,
deal.
I can say like I started off with a little bit with Forum the first year, and then, you know, a little bit more the next year, and then a little bit more, and then at this, you know, third year with Forum, I was like making a okay living, and then Burton was a little bit better again, and then it stayed like that for the 2 years I was there, and you know, like I don't make that money now, but it wasn't like a crazy amount, you know. It wasn't like I don't have a fancy car or five
Yeah.
houses or anything, you know. Like and I haven't wasted that much money because I don't go out and buy a motorcycle or whatever. I just live a normal life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope that you're getting some serious cake because going back and reflecting on your whole years is like, holy shit, dude. X Games, you know, wasn't your thing. You
Well, it's
wrapped.
not that X Games wasn't my thing. So I think I think competing like progressively got less interesting to me, you know? I was competing, and then and I'm also being introduced to filming, and I got to be a part of the forum videos, and I start to film more with my friends at home, and then I get on
Which is the
Burton.
best.
Yeah, and I get on Burton, and they sort of have a different schedule, and then they sort of expected me to compete, and this is like 2013, 14, and I just felt like I was just like a robot to whatever they were expecting of me, you know?
Which sucks because it doesn't really allow you like freedom of expression or anything like that. At one point, you probably just wake up and you're like, this isn't even fun. Like, And
Yeah.
you feel like you're walking on eggshells with this brand, not knowing who you should be every day.
Yeah, exactly. And so competing just got progressively less fun. And this is at the time where triple corks come around, airbags start coming around, Olympics start coming around. It's just like so many. It gets really pushed in to like in the public eye, you know, and that also made competing less interesting to me because I don't know. I don't care about anybody in Norway that, I don't care about somebody that doesn't know about anything about snowboarding to know my name because of
Yeah.
some achievement, you know?
Yeah, no, that's the best thing in the world. I love going back to like Winnipeg where nobody cares who you do. One guy's an electrician, the other guy's a plumber, the other guy works at a bank, the other guy's an addicted gambler, and you play and you snowboard. You're like, what's up?
Yeah,
Sick.
exactly. And I think so what sort of like started me being uninterested and sort of bumming and kind of gave me like it was a spark to made those couple of years a bit harder was that I did well in the years before I did okay and people start expecting me to do well, you know? And that sort of just made it so uninteresting. I enjoyed being younger and nobody knowing my name and like, you know, surprisingly or sort of come out of nowhere or not people not knowing my name and then do well at a contest, you know? Like I enjoyed that part of being a kid that sort of or started to do better at contests. I never enjoyed like being expected to do well. That was like a horrible time.
Yeah, there's like this untold pressure on you without them even saying. They're like, well, we're going to bring you to this event and we hope you win because, last year you got seventh, but we totally know it's up to you. But like, you could take home the gold. You're like
Yeah.
who would at the end of that whole thing, I mean, Burton inevitably comes to an end. Is that just because they
Yeah.
expected you to win or because you?
Well, I think there's like it was the weirdest thing because so I'm pretty unhappy, being on Burton at the time and I was actually like trying to talk to some other brands to see if I can do something else, um but nothing like happened and Burton was like gonna resign and I was sort of like I don't know it's so funny looking back because I would have just been like well I'm not resigning because I'm not happy. That's what I've done now, but back then I was like well it's money, sure, and I wasn't really identifying with myself as a snowboarder at the time. I like lost my pride. I just sold out, and and I was like, sure, I'll resign with him, whatever. And because I'm comfortable, made a decent living, and and I'm like 23, 24 years old. My friends at home are starting to like work and think about making a living too, and it was just this weird thing. And I thought I was gonna get re-signed, and then 3 days before the contract was up, it was just like, nope, not doing it, and they just like backed out.
Wow. And what went through your head when that happened?
Well, to be honest, like it was this weird like mix of it was a big relief, I was like, sure, now I'm broke as hell, but at least I'm happy,
Wow,
and
cool.
it's honestly the best thing that's ever happened to me because if I just stay there, maybe I just accepted not being happy and sort of lose my connection to snowboarding a little bit.
I really
And
think that you blossomed the years following.
well, the
That
next
was your
year, I was just like, I got, I had saved up some money, and I was like, all right, well, I'm going to use this to snowboard, and then I'll see. And I was just like, all right, well, I'll snowboard for myself now, not for anyone else. And that really helped because I felt like my snowboarding had just sort of gone downhill. Like my motivation to snowboard and everything had gone down for like a few years. And I, and like I sort of, at this point, I was like, stop partying and just sort of try to figure out my priorities in life, and starting to realize that the most important thing for me is snowboarding, and that's what I do when I'm happy. I do it when I'm bummed. I do it whenever. It's the best thing, and I like to go and just snowboard for myself, and that's sort of what I did that year, and that year sort of sparked getting on other companies, sparked the next 5 years until now.
And then is that when you would have signed with Rome then?
Yes, so I started, like writing right away. I didn't know what I was gonna do, and Stale and Len was on Rome, and they linked me up with them, and I got a couple of boards, and I rode that for most of the winter, and that led into signing with them eventually.
When you first got on Rome, you didn't sign with them. You just rode the boards because you just needed some decks. They got you through the year with the boards. Did you film a video part on those boards and then they were like signed you the year after, or did you take a year off, like just
No.
off from filming?
No, I like film with my friends and stuff, but it wasn't any like big production, So it's funny because, yeah, like I rode their boards, and it was like in the talks that they were going to sign me and what was going to happen and whatever. And sorry that I'm like stumbling a little bit. I tried to like think back because I haven't thought about this stuff for a long time.
I like it.
These are so many years that I haven't really like categorized in my head. It's like goes to 2014 and back to 12 and whatever. But I think the main thing is like I went from, getting this amazing opportunity to sort of go downhill. And at this point, I'm back at zero. And I realized, sort of realized my priorities. And I just rode that 1 year and to make myself happy and do what I liked. And I was still competing a little bit. But it was like more fun because I didn't do it for anybody. Nobody expected anything from me. And it snowboarding sort of just like got new again for me. And what's funny is like, Rome was about to happen, and then they sort of pulled out. And this is Instagram has started at this point, And I didn't have
world.
I didn't have anything to film with, or if, any like company or anything. Nobody to pay me into a video, and not that I'm like, oh, poor me. It's just like, so I just like filmed with my friends and filmed this clip where I did like a turn and I like flipped out of it, And that trick, I was just like, sure, I'll put out on Instagram. It's filmed with a phone, whatever. And that trick sort of, Snowboarder Mag put it on Instagram, Transworld put it on Instagram, and it got like a lot of hits, on the internet. And then like a few days later, Rome came back and then they signed me.
Oh, I hate the internet so much because I see that it's like, yes, it does a lot of good, but I feel like the bad outweighs the good that it's doing these days. But it serves a purpose for things like that. Like it can get people who deserve spotlight recognition, like it reignited your whole career, something that you were just doing because you were having fun.
I worked like, hard and like filming in the backcountry and everything. And I sort of like come to the point where I'm like, well, maybe, I'm not supposed to like do this for a living anymore. And I was sort of okay with that, and then this silly clip filmed with a phone put on Instagram sort of like sparked it again. It was just, it's like, like looking back, it's sort of like sad, to see me working so hard and nobody caring. And not that I expect everybody to care or anything. It's just like, but then this phone clip comes out and I get a new deal,
Yeah, and you're like, I could do that every year. I could film full parts on the mountain all year and I could be getting re-signed. You're like, hell yeah.
No, but I think also this was like right as a lot of companies were shifting a lot of marketing towards social media and
big time.
And like I'm not anti-social media at all because like you have this amazing opportunity to it's not like you have to identify with like you on social media isn't you as a person, but it's your window to show whoever cares to see out there what you're up to, and
yeah.
And for me, I enjoy like the platform to see people I look up to, what they do. And like as a kid, I loved like, day in the life videos.
Yeah.
And not that I want to see day in the lives every day, but I enjoy seeing, what people listen to, what music they listen to, like maybe edits they produce themselves, like, all that like little stuff. I find that like entertaining. But I think it's sad that snowboarding, like, that's taking more and more over for like deals and whatever.
It just, yeah, that's the problem with, there's a number associated with your name that a lot of brands look at that. And luckily I'm grateful I ride for brands that don't associate that whole Instagram following with people's credibility.
Yeah.
Because there's people like, okay, in my just for shits and giggles, you know, you got some names, people that are closer to me here. Like you got Lewif and you got like Danimals and Kuzik, whatever. Some people that I would say are like the best, like some of the best snowboarders with good taste and stuff. None of those people have like massive followings according to like analytics and so, but like doesn't that should never take away from like the hard work that they put together into making like a film. Like for example, you when you made like Void, like to me that's like way more important that people put energy into stuff like that than putting energy into social media. So I hope that brands always focus the majority of their budgets going towards people that are deserving of it rather than like the guys that do just butter around the hill all day with their new GoPro. Like unless it's you who's also filming video parts and also has that whole credibility piece behind them, I just don't think anybody who's doing that on the mountain shit should have anything.
Yeah, no, it's, it's a balance with everything. And, as, videos are obviously important. And I've grown up that's, the number one, and photos and magazines are the number one. But I also, like, I don't know, it's just, we can't really do anything about like how the future generations are. And, we can do what we think is sick. And I think the only thing that matters is that we do stuff that we're happy with. And if that comes across, then it doesn't matter how many followers you have or what project it's in.
Yeah. That's a better way to put it. Because like you said before, with the whole Burton thing, that you weren't happy and you got stripped down to zero again. And that was kind of an epiphany for you that you're like, whoa, I kind of needed that. It's like,
Yeah. Well,
sometimes.
it's just like, I feel bad saying that I'm not happy. It's just that I got to a point where I was doubting what I was doing. And I was so fortunate I actually lived off snowboarding. And how can you doubt what you're doing if you're doing what you actually love?
Well, there's a level of fulfillment that you didn't get while you were riding for Burton. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was just a
and
level of like, you doubting what you were doing and stuff. And, you didn't have a creative space where I think the brands that you ride for now, Air Blaster, Rome and stuff, like you have a lot of freedom to be more
yeah,
you than
I
ever.
don't ride for Rome anymore though.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
What are you riding for?
Well, I left Rome this summer actually.
See, I mean, I was off the Instagram for one day and I missed it.
No,
Some
like
dated old snowboard podcast guy doesn't even know you're not on Rome anymore.
no, so like obviously Rome was like such a good thing, and it like sort of put me back into space. Like they got me into videos, and it sort of like sparked a new thing for me, and I'm really thankful. Like they did a lot for me. But yeah, like I did it for like myself for a year, and that also for me sparked the work part, because I was like, well, I'm having fun now. And I just that 2015, that year was just like so important, because it just reset me completely, and I sort of forgot about my past 5 years, even though it was a lot of good experiences. That like the years just fly by, but you also got to try to figure out who you are at the time. Like early 20s, it's like identity crisis always is. It's just so many things happening, and at this point I'm like 24 and 23, 24, and I sort of just realized, like, all right, my identity is snowboarding. That's what I want to do. That's this year nobody's paying me, but I'm still gonna snowboard. And it was just a really important time, for me personally.
Do you have a new board sponsor?
Well, I'm currently riding on Karua boards.
Karua.
Well, I have some friends there that have given me boards, and I love their boards and what their company is about and everything. And like, so I've been with Rome for 5 years, and I sort of I just felt like I needed to do my own thing, and like we talked about before, do what makes you happy. And I just felt like I felt a bit of pressure towards filming and being part of these like projects. And and everything, and I sort of like pretty like done riding like street and stuff. So I was like, I
Dude,
sort of
you need
just,
to just keep riding POW, dude. You in Japan is something special. Like the beacon and stuff like that. Only a few clips, but dude, like you have a gift out there. I love watching you ride like POW.
thank you. Well, I think like my main focus is, just going to be riding a lot and riding every day and doing what I enjoy and not put too much pressure on myself. Like I've, after, so back to 2015, I like got on Rome and, like that was awesome. And they helped me into the Transworld videos, and I did 2 videos with Transworld. And then I got the opportunity to go to Japan with Louis for Beacon, and then I did my own little video in 2017, I think. And
Yeah, that video was rad, by the way. That was really cool. Did you produce that?
yeah, what does produce mean? Like,
Did you, is it like your vision? Did you like put the
yeah,
whole, yeah, that was really cool. That was
yeah.
Void,
I mean,
correct?
yeah, it was me and my friend Martin. So 2 years before this, I get to know this guy. His name is Martin, awesome filmer, and he was like filming skating and stuff. And I got the opportunity to film Transworld, and I was like, "Yo, do you want to film with me?" And like his first like video filming snowboarding was for the Transworld video,
Which
and
is that Insight or Arcadia?
yeah, that's Insight. And then we sort of did that thing for 2 years, and I was pretty over after 2 years. I was a little over the whole filming for a bigger video and it having to live up to other people's standards to make the cut of like your 2.5 minutes or whatever,
Yeah.
and that sort of sparked me to just be like, all right, well, I'm going to film as much as I can this year on all the spots that I've never gotten to hit or whatever, and sort of just like do a year where I work really hard on something.
Yeah.
And that was that year. And after that, I started feeling a bit like, wanting to ride, just basically spend more time in the mountains. I was just like overspending the winters in the city.
I mean, I feel like everybody, when they have a career as long as yours, an amazing one at that, eventually you kind of set your priorities. And I feel like most people, their priorities goes into, riding POW and getting out of the streets at 28. I mean, I just had Keegan on the show, and it's like, Keegan's like, I'm not going to be hitting rails to flat anymore. It was fun, but like, I think we're
Yeah.
all inspired by like filming those urban clips that eventually, is there not something that draws you just like it draws me, like something holistically and soulful, like you're out in Japan in the trees, you're like, in the Alps and you're riding with your friends. There's something about being in the mountains strapped to a snowboard that feels so, it brings me a level of joy way more than like filming on a rail. I like rails and stuff,
Yeah.
but it's,
And not necessarily that I have to go too many crazy places, because I mean, I've been so fortunate. I've traveled, a million times, to America, and gone to Japan a few times, and everywhere in the world almost. And I just sort of like a few years ago got to the point where I was like, it makes no sense. Like, I have everything I need at home. I can do a trip or two a year, with my sponsors, but it's amazing terrains. It's great mountains. It's everything I need is right here. And I sort of got to the point where I was like, this year, I just want to snowboard every day, split board, and spend time in the mountains here. And that's like just the main plan, really.
that's the best plan ever. I mean, that's the same plan that I have. I mean, COVID definitely has set some restrictions, at least around here, to enjoy your own backyard. And as long as
Yeah.
I'm like, have a big enough piece of slope to get the speed I need to enjoy snowboarding, and a long enough slope so I can like get boogieing, which I mean, luckily BC provides that. I could be anywhere in the world as long as there's some snow. And I'm fortunate enough that COVID restrictions, I'm trapped in my home base, BC, and it's a pretty good place to be trapped.
Yeah. Yeah. BC is awesome. But yeah, so I think like after filming for a few years, I've just a lot of the projects are sort of it's not like I was making like great money. You can just travel somewhere because the conditions are good. So it sort of like puts you in the position where you got to be home to film, and because I can't fly myself to wherever, and I can't fly myself plus a filmer to wherever, So that sort of like also made me stay a lot in Oslo over those years, and but it was really good for that time. It was fun, but when Void was done, I was just sort of, I felt a bit empty. I felt a bit like, just like, all right, well, I worked my hardest and it's a video, but it's not like I feel like a that much of fulfillment, like it's, you go out, you set up a spot, you work your ass off, you get a trick, and it's like, it's this like relief that you get that feels good, But at the end of the year, going into that next year, I was like, well, I can't. I've just worked as hard as I can for an entire year. I'm, sort of. I never really get happy with the stuff I get, but at that point, I was like, I'm pretty happy with whatever came out last year, because I put in so much work, and I just like, I can't like top that feeling in the sense of working like that. And then, but I got into, like doing the Scandinavians project. And over those 2 years, I sort of just spent a lot of time going riding like by myself, like, because it was 2 years, I wasn't stressing, and, I didn't film that much for it. So I had a lot of time to just ride, and it just made me like constantly like reconsider my like values and like what I'm about and what I want to do. And and I spend a lot of time in the summers and falls like hiking in the mountains and being outside and in nature, and just only feels natural to do that in the winter too. And and it just sort of led to me, leaving Rome and wanting to spend more time around Norway, cruising and splitboarding and whatever.
And Norway is an absolutely beautiful place to have that, I mean, as your backyard to explore. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
absolutely amazing, and
And
it's freaking beautiful. How
yeah,
close do you live from your place that you're at right now to the mountains?
well, right now I'm at my girlfriend's family's place, and it's in Hemsedal, right by the hill.
Oh wow, sick.
So we just sold our place at home, so I'm sort of like homeless right now. So I live in Oslo, or just outside Oslo, but that's like 3 hours away from here. So it's like closer mountains that are pretty good, but I think the main focus is just gonna sort of, not like, it's not like I'm not gonna do tricks and not gonna film, or I love filming and I love getting out there and going on a mission, but I just was so over that traditional trying to counting my tricks. I got to do harder tricks, whatever. If I'm gonna film, I want to like be part of like projects where sort of base them around ideas or do something different, and uh, and yeah,
I think that was the coolest thing that anyone's. I love that you said that there's a level, there's an addiction we have as snowboarders and people who love to like film clips to like stacking clips, but there is a level of like you can never really be truly fulfilled, because I mean, at least for me personally, I always look at my clips and I'm like, could have done that better. Wish I would have got
yeah,
that cab 9 a little bit bigger. I did it that time. I wish I would have filmed the back 7 like this. And I mean, at one point, you kind of just have to be, I like where you're saying, just taking this from a much more like grounded sense, almost like perfection is unachievable, and just enjoy the season and enjoy my time out in the mountains rather than stressing on like clips, expectation, and like, pressure that
yeah,
you put on yourself to outdo yourself, and just enjoy the whole, especially with COVID, just the whole slowing down. I feel like the whole world could use that quote, and just everything needs to be slowed down. Like just
yeah, and
enjoy every day and enjoy, instead of like the process. Like most kids will probably look up to you and they think like, if I achieve what Alec did, I will be the happiest person in the world. If I could film 10 video parts and be a part of Forum and be in the X Games and be in Trans World movies and get a pro model board with my name on it, like if I can achieve all that, then I will be fully happy and everything will be perfect utopia world. And you right now is just being like, that's not the end all. Like, it's just, that's not it. Because now
Yeah,
you're
well,
like, you have to reevaluate everything when you get there.
yeah, it's funny because like looking back at the time, all like those things were just like these like temporary pieces of like happiness. It's like achieving something, and it's like, oh, that felt great to achieve. Like filming, for form, like it was really nice at that time. But then where I'm now, like I just try to like enjoy every little piece that I'm doing, like enjoy going out every day, like putting more like just effort and thought into like small things, and try to pat myself on the shoulder way more often, because I've spent so many years like just criticizing and being unhappy with what I do. But because you grow up looking at your heroes doing a trick and you imagine yourself to do it like them, and then you see it and it's not like them at all. It's like in your weird ass body, like, and I have like long arms, for example, and I just see my long arms everywhere, and it's just like this like devastation that's gone on for so many years that I've just gotten to a point where I'm like, well, my focus or my goal is to keep snowboarding for forever and as long as I can and enjoy it. And if I'm going to enjoy it, I better start enjoying it right now. And how can I possibly make that happen? And for me, that's going out every day, riding a lot, and just spending time on the mountain, and anything like on top of that is a bonus,
That was amazing. Yeah. Like, I don't want to compare apples to oranges because everybody's different, but man, it's crazy. I've dedicated my whole life to snowboarding, filming clips. And yeah, it's just like, it's weird to hear that from somebody like yourself, somebody that I really look up to, that you feel the same way. Cause I've never liked my own snowboarding, like till this day. Like I like pieces of it, but like you said, the arm thing, or like the way my jacket fit that year, or just like, oh, I wanted to replicate it like this pro, but it didn't look like that. It looked like me. And like, oh, I have my own friends give me a really hard time because I don't like anything I film. It doesn't matter if I
Yeah.
do it as best as I possibly could do it on that feature. I am the I'll watch it and there's no way I'm happy. There's no point of even showing me the clip. I can tell you offhand, I probably like 5 clips that I've ever filmed, and they're amazing, and I like those 5 clips, but that's because the angle was good. I like my kit. I like and it's like I just want to have like 20 more of those, but I just don't know if I can do it. It's so hard.
Well, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've just had that so much in my life, and and I got to a point where I was like, how can I be that unhappy with like what I do, but then still like snowboarding so much, you know? And it's been like a long thought process for me. It's probably gone on for like, like it's obviously like gone on forever, but I think it's just in the last few years evolved a little more into, I think I think for a long time I was like so like thankful to be a, call it what, I hate the word professional, but live of it, I was
Yeah.
just like hyped to make money, and like scared to like be in the real world and having to make money. And it was just so comfortable that I like sold my interest in it. I sold all these things that really was me, like I lost my identity so much. And I think these past 5 years I've just felt like I've tried to change my mindset a little bit and find it back. And now like I've more than, every year it feels better and better. But now I feel more than ever that I've just gotten to a point where, you know I'm 29. I honestly, like, I'm so thankful for the companies that support me, but I don't expect, ever, I just don't want to expect too much. I just like, I'm going to go out, do my best, snowboard every day, but I'm not doing it to be pro, or I hate that word. Sorry.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm doing it to be happy and cause I like it,
I mean, I I know so many people who have achieved greatness. Truly, I know some people who have made it as musicians. Um, I have ex girlfriends who are billionaires, and I have so and there's it's insane when there's nothing that can make yourself like there's no material possession, or there's really nothing that can make yourself happy in the future. You have to be so present and just be happy with yourself. Because I
Yeah.
mean, so many times I'm just not, I'm not happy with simple things like, the way you look. Like, does anybody really look in the mirror and go like, "Yeah, I like myself"? Even the hottest people in the world, people that girls and guys would do anything to look at themselves in the mirror and go, "I don't like the way I look."
Yeah.
I'm starting to realize that my skin, my clothes, everything isn't even me. The only thing that's me is this brain that no one can even see. Like, I didn't choose to look like this. I didn't it's all just this
Well,
mirage of a thing. It's like not real. The only
yeah.
thing
Well,
it's
don't worry about how you look. You look great, but
yeah, you too. But you know what I
I
mean? Like
think, yeah, yeah. And for me, the thing that really proved it was like the years looking back, like the years I had at Burton, like I made the most money I've ever made in my life. Like, I don't make anything close to that now. Like I scratch to sort of, like I can like get by, but at that point I made like quite a bit of money, and that's the most unhappy I've ever been. Because I had nothing else. Like I had money. I wasn't myself. I couldn't identify with what I was doing. Like I was just like very, very unhappy at that time. And it was like a mix of a lot of things, but it really like proved that it's not that important like how much you have. And like also I had as much like gear as I've ever had, like I had my basement full of new gear that came in like every week on the door. Like this was at a time where they're still sending out way too much gear, not like saving money on anything. And like I had the gear I dreamed of as a kid. I had money that I sort of felt like I was expecting to have as an adult. But personally I was just unhappy. And I think the 5 years after that until now it's just been like a learning curve how to live life, and what to focus on. And to me it's just really come down to figuring out how to keep myself happy.
And what steps have you taken to realize how to become more happy? Are you reading books? Do you have a mentor? Do you have a friend that you like? How have you stripped away these layers of meaningless things in your life, like money and material possessions, and becoming this more like simplicity is what I truly need to be happy? Like, where did you learn this from?
Well, I think so. Well, first thing, like way back, I sort of like stopped drinking because that was like
It's
like
a
for a few,
negative.
yeah, for a few years, like I was on companies, and on every trip, like there's I'd go to like a morning shoot. It was like a 40 pack of beer waiting there at 8:30. It was just alcohol available at all time. And then when I came home, all my friends at home wanted to party, and I was like for a few years like out drinking like pretty much every day for like a couple of years. And
Same.
and like I was just like gaining weight, being unhappy, trying to fit in at home, trying to fit in at snowboarding. And it's just like being so like insecure about myself. And I still am, but I've gotten to, like, so I stopped like sort of drinking and partying, and tried to think about, I realized that money didn't buy me happiness at all. And new gear didn't buy me happiness. And that year where I didn't have any sponsors really like made it clear, like, this is what I enjoy to do. So I'm going to keep doing this, regardless if I have to work every single day and go riding at night whenever I can. Like, this is what makes me happy. And then I've just gotten lucky after that and been able to, film for a couple of projects. And this is all like help to like help me figure out what I'm looking for in the future. And I think it's just a learning curve every year, and hopefully next year I know even more about how to make myself happy. But at the time, like, like I can't complain. I have supportive friends and family. I have an amazing girlfriend. I live in Norway. I get to snowboard all the time. Like, how can I really complain? If I'm complaining, I'm doing something really wrong.
So this is like a self-taught, um, you're just like learning about yourself. I like how like I feel like every once in a while you need to take a step back and like remove yourself from yourself and like look at yourself. I've said this before on the podcast, and I say this to a lot of my friends, but I think it's the best thing I've ever come up with in my life. Sometimes I like to like picture myself as the main character of a movie, like I'm the main person or the main guy in the book, however you want to put it, and I'm looking at myself navigating through this movie. And when I see that person like hit this obstacle or have to make this like crucial life choice, I like to be like, well, what do I want this main character to do? Like, should
Yeah.
this main character just give up right now and cry on the couch and feel sorry for himself? Or should he start exercising and get that done? Or like, if you just look at yourself like the main character, I feel like, and you just take yourself away from yourself and you look at him like, do I like what this main character's doing? Or is he being a little bitch right now? And he deserves to get a little slap from his friend because he sucks right now. And it's like, of course, that main character is going to go through a lot of tough times throughout the movie. There's always tough times in a movie, but I want that main character at the end of the movie be somebody that I like. And at the end of the movie, I'm like, that dude was so sick. Like he crushed it. And that's kind of how I want to like live my life, as like somebody that like I like the way he navigated being the main character. I don't know if that
Yeah, well, it makes sense, and well, sometimes it feels good laying on the couch crying too. But
yeah, it
you know,
does.
I think everybody have their like techniques, and for me, it's pretty like self thought, you know, because feel like I'm, you know, like the vacuum cleaners that you put on the floor and they hit every obstacles and every obstacle and they turn
Yeah.
around. I feel like that's what I've done my entire life. You know, I hit and find out whatever I shouldn't do, and then I turn around and I do something else, and nope, shouldn't do that either. And that's sort of
Oh my
how
God.
it's just like worked till now, you know, and or I try to make it work and try to make it better for myself every year and learn from everything I do. And I think also a good thing is trying to look back, like what did I do back then? Why was it like that? You know, why was I unhappy or why was I happy? You know, even when you do something good, like try to look back, like, oh, what made me happy at that time? Like, how can I replicate that or do something similar? You know?
I feel like a lot of the times if you look at your life through a not a judgmental way, but like you fully look at it and take away all the emotions and stuff, and you look at it very clean, like blank canvas, you can find a lot of things in your life that you're like, this thing's never made me happy. I feel like another good thing is removing people in your life that are like a negative, you know what I mean? People who've always kind of made you insecure about yourself. If you can remove a few of those people, like people that you've hung out with and had attached in your close circle for way too long, but you're like, this person's never kind of made me feel good about myself, or like just the way I never feel like surrounding yourself with people that you can truly be yourself and just be comfortable with. It's like you don't have a lot of people in your life that you really can strip down all the barriers and be yourself. And if you find a few of those people, just keep them by your side because it's nice to have them.
Yeah. And I think for me too, like when I stopped partying, I stopped being too social, you know, like, and I like spend a lot of time by myself, and I'm not like, I'm not like a guy that needs to hang out with somebody all the time. Like I enjoy time by myself, and I don't like hang out that much, and I didn't party anymore, and it just made me, it gave me more time to think and not, instead of feeling judged by people I was around or anything. And that sort of like helped a lot for me, you know. Just I think for some people, spending time by yourself if you're in a bad place might not be good, but for me, like it was really really crucial, and it helped me a lot. And I think I always like tried to take a step back and look like, you know, why I was happy or not. And doing that when you're on your own is really good.
There's a lot of meditative practices, not that I've dove into the whole yoga world that much, but I've been talking to a few friends, and my good friend Matt sent me a pretty epic podcast the other day with this guy who like, I don't know, Zen master chi dog from, yoga man. And he just knows all. And he's just so well spoken. And his ritual is every morning he gets up and he just spends an hour of silence, like just breathing, and doesn't want to have music, nothing. And he lets his mind go wherever it wants to go, whether it's negative, positive. He doesn't try to steer it in any way. And he's super pro, like spending time with yourself, and don't plug music in, don't plug a podcast, like spend alone time with yourself to know where your thoughts are, know where your curiosities are. Cause a lot of those times you figure out a lot more than I feel like a lot of people drowned their own thoughts with music, drugs, alcohol, podcast. They don't want to ever just be alone with their own thoughts, which I think you
Yeah.
need that time to just be alone with your thoughts and let them go to negative things because your brain's telling you something when it does get, drawn in that direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And I haven't gotten into that like stuff either. Like I've sort of, I think like, it's probably works wonders for some people, but for me, I've liked to enjoyed finding my own way. And for me, I spend a lot of time just walking outside in nature, no music, nothing, just appreciating little things, and actually a thing that really like helped me a little bit was like getting a camera and like taking photos because you pay way closer attention to everything around you, you know, like a little bird flying here or whatever, like just little things. And just maybe, you don't need like anything crazy to happen for it to be a good day. You can look at the smaller things a little bit more. And I think that's something that's helped, throughout in snowboarding too. These days I try to appreciate little things, like looking back at a couple of days ago when I was riding, I was like, oh, actually, like jumping off that little side it and doing a spray there or whatever, that felt really good. And I tried to remember that good feeling and
Oh,
and
sick.
and instead of like thinking about everything that I didn't do that day,
I know. I listened to another podcast. I hate saying that because I feel like I say it too much, but I listened to a lot of them. And this guy was saying that 80%, I mean, how do they prove this? I have no idea. So take this with a grain of salt, but 80% of your own thoughts tend to go to a negative. And I was
Ooh.
like, wow. So, but he's like, you have to coach yourself to not have that happen. You know what I mean? So spend time with yourself. And like, I was like, because a lot of times I'm alone and I'm like, what the hell? Like, why am I so like, I like being with my girlfriend and stuff like that. And I am a pretty positive person. And I just feel like between COVID, um, snowboarding video parts, it's a weird thing when you dedicate your whole life to this thing. It's not like dedicating your life to something that lasts forever. You're dedicating yourself. When you dedicate your life to snowboarding or skateboarding or anything that's a physical activity, at one point or another, your body starts deteriorating, and it doesn't matter how bad you want to keep it going. You can't. It's like that book or that movie, Curious Case of Benjamin Button, and he like starts like an old person and dies like a young person or something like that.
Yeah,
But like
I
you're
remember that
kind of
one.
like deteriorating this whole time. Where like a lot of my friends who, like my sister, for example, she's a pharmacist and she's really interested in how drugs and stuff like that work in your mind and how all that stuff. The more she studies, the more she learns about it, the more it's like this over the course of 50 years, she's going to get better and better and better and better and better at it. Where snowboarding, it's like this, like from 12 to 25, you get better and better and better and better. And then at one point you're like, I can't get any better because my body doesn't let me. And then by the time you're 40, you're out there doing indies and stuff and it sucks, but you have to come to terms with that's how it is. It doesn't matter how good you take care
But
of your body.
well, that's why you better learn to enjoy your indie grabs then. So it will feel,
Exactly.
like if you can appreciate the indie like you appreciated a 900 3 years ago or 5 years ago, then it's
It's
that
the same
makes it,
thing.
yeah, it's that same feeling. And I think for me, it's like trying to replicate that feeling or give myself that feeling as much as possible. And that's sort of like led me down this like road to figure out like what I'm about. And honestly, like right now I'm really stoked. Like I'm, writing for companies that I'm super happy about. And like I'm around supportive people and a supportive girlfriend and family and everything. And on top of that, I think I've thought myself to just enjoy everything a little bit more. And it just really, really made everything better for me.
I think that's a big takeaway from this episode for anybody younger is that there's a level of fulfillment you get for riding for brands that match who you are and like what your values are and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
if you, like you said, I'm so happy that you were openly and willingly, um, willing to say that you at one point felt like you kind of were selling out by riding for Burton because it just wasn't who you were. And it wasn't until they said it wasn't going to work out. You're like, that's kind of the best thing ever because this wasn't for me to begin with. And so
Yeah,
if you're like some young kid and you have like this offer on the table with this company that you don't support or value, or you don't agree with anything that they're doing, like maybe don't do it. Maybe, maybe that's the takeaway from this episode is do stuff that's more, affiliated with what you support, your morals and values, etc.
yeah. And right now I'm like surrounded by people that, that support that, and it's and support me for who I am and what I do. And it's honestly the best feeling ever. Like I'm so thankful to the companies that, I ride for.
Who
And
are
it's
those
just,
brands?
so I ride for Smith, Air Blaster, Vance, Session Board Shop, and I ride for the Norwegian, like Lotto. I'll tell you about it in a second. And then I've been
Norwegian Lotto? You're my hero. I love gambling.
and yeah, I've been riding on Karua boards for the past 6 months.
Do you have any shots in the new Vans movie coming out?
No, I've gone on like a trip with like Vance in Europe. It's
Yeah.
so I think that's maybe for a project that comes out next year. But yeah, the Lotto thing it's actually really, really sick. It's so the Lotto in Norway is like governmentally owned, and gambling is illegal. So it's just like, you give your Lotto every week, and and the I think the rule is that the government has to give money to sports. But this is like the only like sports sponsor in Norway that are there to sponsor the parks and like the people behind the scenes, basically.
Cool.
So they for me, like they just give me a budget to do an event for kids,
Wow, that's
and
dope.
and they like help me out do stuff for the community. So it's like them wanting to contribute to snowboarding here in Norway and for younger people. So I do like a banked slalom in Oslo, and they sponsor it and pay for it, and they're like, yeah, whatever you want to do, that's for the community and everything, will help that out. So it's like a really like good opportunity to make something for everyone else that snowboards in Norway.
That feels incredible. I have a little event that I've held for almost, I don't know now, like
10-year
8 years or
anniversary.
something. Yeah, almost 8 years now. I've been having a little event at my hometown mountain that they don't have any like sponsor. I'm from the middle of nowhere.
At
And so,
Christmas, right?
and I always have it at Christmas. And unfortunately, this year with the restrictions and stuff like that, I don't think I'm going to be able to take it home. But there's something about shredding with young, frothy kids, and especially from like underprivileged backgrounds. Like a lot of kids that come to my events, they don't have a lot, or this actually all stemmed. It's a cool story. Actually, I'll quickly say it. There's a young kid that came up to me after the event. I gave him a new pair of bindings and like a hoodie, and he was like 12 years old, and he's never won anything new. And he didn't even, the whole event's about having fun. It's not about like being first, second, or third or whatever. Like, it's about coming up, having a good time, and then I'm giving away some prizes. And luckily all my brands really get behind it and send me a lot of stuff. And I gave this kid the bindings and hoodie. He came up to me, so well spoken, and he was like, hey, he's like, I'm a foster child. I've never, I've been floating around my whole life. And I've never owned anything new before. I just wanted to say thank you very much. Like this means a lot. And he's been at the event every year since, and I have like
Sick.
this little connection with him. And I swear to God, him coming up to me and saying that to me, I was like, it was my first year doing it. I was like, I'm coming back every year and I'm doing this. Cause like there's that one shy kid in the back that's never gotten a free hoodie or a free sticker. And to them, to have a cool event and to be a part of the community means the world to them. And if all I have to do is write a few emails to my sponsors and lug some gear to the hill, like I'm going to keep doing it.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. And I think also, like I've also learned that in the later years, like from being thankful or unthankful or being, like whatever, I've just, realized that to contribute, to give a kid the type of happiness you had with snowboarding as a kid, to help
Yeah.
them get there, or like, for example, this kid, you give him like the ultimate happiness or for that day, like
Yeah.
he's still there every year. And
He's
to do
sick
that
now.
yeah, to do that is like such like an incredible gift that you get to have as a snowboarder in our position, you know, like being able to help or push someone in the direction to love snowboarding the same way we do is amazing. You know, it's an amazing thing that I try to tell myself to do more often. And if I can inspire or help someone to get in that position to experience the things I've gotten to experience, the friendships and you know everything about it, that's a really cool thing.
Yes, it's if you can, and it's easy. And when you have the, like you said, when you're in the position of someone like yourself or me, it's something. It doesn't take us much, and you can literally change someone's life. Because I feel like a lot of people struggle. A lot of regular folks that don't have snowboarding or they don't have a thing, you know what I mean? And when somebody
Yeah,
doesn't have like a thing and they don't have a passion and they don't feel like a belonging to like a culture or to like a group, you know, like I feel like if you go back to our whole tribal instincts kind of thing, like humans have a desire to belong to like a tribe. And like our tribe is snowboarding. And like when you don't feel like you have a belonging and you don't like, if you can steer somebody to be a part of the snowboard tribe or the snowboard culture, like that that truly can be a life of fulfillment for that person.
yeah, absolutely. And for me and you, it's been our life, you know, like finding snowboarding. And I think more than anything, the most important thing for me, like from even from like way back till now, and is sort of like finding my path to find my identity, which I've just realized, you know, or which I, you know, have realized it's just snowboarding and the people that do it, the culture, everything about it, and to have an identity in life. Like I realize now a lot of my friends at my age, they don't have an interest. They don't know what they like to do. They go to drink beer to just, you know, crush time when they're off. Like, but to have that in your life, something to consume your time, your thoughts, get you inspired, get you happy. It's just the most amazing thing ever.
And yeah, exactly what this whole premise of this podcast it was is that, and not doing it for a material or like a financial or doing it for a reward, except for yourself. Like you're not doing it like to go snowboarding and not do it for money, not do it for fame, not do it for clout, not do it for anything. But and it takes you a while as a professional snowboarder to not do it for any of those reasons and only to do it for yourself because it truly brings you the individual happiness. It like completes you in a sense.
Oh yeah, it's been the longest like learning curve, and I make it sound like it's like over and now I'm done. But you know, until now, until up until this point, it's been a really long learning curve, and it's been some massive ups and downs and everything. And but I'm just thankful for all of them, and I'm thankful for like the times that you know I thought was tough and the times that I thought was great, and you know like I hate to say that I had like a tough time, but it doesn't, you know, because so many people have it worse. But in my little head, in my little bubble and world, I was having a terrible time at times, and at sometime I was like having a great time, and I'm just in the end really thankful for all those emotions, feelings, everything, because it's led to the point that I'm at now, and now I just feel a little bit more educated in myself and what I'm about, and that's a good, pretty good feeling.
Yeah, that's if yeah, everybody needs to realize that it's like when you're down in the dumps trying to figure out everything, life is just one long continuous learning thing. You're just constantly learning about yourself and life and what matters to you. And yeah, to not get too wrapped up in those moments that do seem difficult, you know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of people once they get wrapped up in like a hard time in their life, it's easy to just be to want to like give up or whatever like that. But there's definitely a lot of light at in any tunnel. I mean, you've we've both known people who've probably lost a lot, you know what I mean? From people passing away to, you know, being restricted due to tons of things, outside forces that are way beyond, you know, a car accident takes away your ability to even snowboard and then having to deal with that. I feel like everyone needs to just know that it's life is one long continuous learning path. And if, as long as you don't want to give up, there's just always a giant rainbow around the corner. It just doesn't seem like it sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's funny that it's like we've talked about it a lot now, like about finding like the happiness, but it hasn't been like a conscious thought that much. It's just like, I think like, it's like everybody just navigating through life and trying to make the best of it. But yeah, I hope everybody, like tried to look back and see what they did right and wrong, and use that for the future.
On that note, I think I have a few things I wanted to just quickly say is that you're definitely one of the most talented snowboarders I've ever seen on a snowboard. I can't believe, from pipe riding to jumps to backcountry to rails to one-footed Scott Stevens to hand plants. Like I don't know. I think that there's not a lot who have achieved what you've achieved on a snowboard, and I think that that's something, just from me to you, that you should just be so proud of yourself. I mean, like you said, it's like it's really hard to ever look at your own footage and be happy with it, but if I were you, hot damn, I would be happy. I'd be celebrating every day.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think like you said, you're always so caught up in the work process that it's really hard to look at it. But honestly, I feel like if I let a couple of years pass by and I look at it, I can appreciate things in a different way, like, oh, I went and hit that rail, or I went and hit that jump, or I did that trick. That trick is never going to happen again. Like that hard way back too, we talked about, and I think just being thankful for what you did at that point is really important, because if you did something to gain this happiness or fulfillment, and 5 years down the road you're still not able to be happy with it, then like you just have to like it for what it is and appreciate it for the time you had there, or wherever it might be, or at whatever rail or jump or whatever.
You can't beat yourself up over not being this idea of perfect. You know what I mean? Perfectionism is unachievable. That's the reason why it's perfect. You know what I mean? Like nothing's going to ever. So if you can just look at a few of your tricks and be happy, and look at a few things in your life and be happy, you'll be just fine.
So that's the goal for both of us this year, is to pat ourselves on the shoulder a little bit more.
I know. I actually have a lot of
done.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to do it right now. I'm just going to pat my, like, well done. You've dodged a lot of bullets through life. You've gone through the highs and lows. Luckily I have like you mentioned, you got the girlfriend and the fam, your mom and stuff. And there's nothing better than having a partner in crime. You know what I mean? Just that's nice. Whether it's your girlfriend or not, you know what I mean? It could be a best friend, could be an old friend you haven't talked to, but having somebody on your side, on your bench is always kind of nice.
Yeah, and also like I have two awesome brothers, two younger brothers.
Shout outs.
And just close friends, and I think also if getting into snowboarding really like makes you surrounded by the coolest people, because they're into the same as you, and it's this awesome thing, because I mean even as a kid you would ride with the oldest guys on the hill, and now I'm the oldest guy on the hill, and I'll ride with like a 15-year-old, and age doesn't matter, nothing matters. It's just that you like snowboarding.
That's the coolest thing about this thing that we have, snowboarding, is I remember that distinctly, being super young and being like 14 and getting picked up in the car by a guy way older, with his license and beers, and my parents being like, where are you going with this person who should be like, like he's like 10 years older than you, you know what I mean? But it doesn't matter in skateboarding or snowboarding. You have like, I'll go shred with like, someone who's 15 years old, like you were just saying. And then, I'm 32. And I remember being the kid at the park being like, whoa, look at that super old dude at the park who still like is shredding, and he's old. And now I'm that person who's like riding park, and I'm like, yeah, kids, I'm here and I love it.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah, that's us, buddy. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I think that we couldn't have ended it on a better note of positivity, especially during these uncertain times. But dude, big
Thank you.
fan. Thank you for all of your hard work that you've put into snowboarding. Um, yeah,
Thank you.
I mean,
I
I watched
appreciate it.
all your footage in the last 3 or 4 days, which took me 3 or 4 days because you have so much footage. And um, there's very few people who've, you know, done what you've done. If not, it's like, yeah, like 10, dude, from being at the level of top contest riding, in the top 10 for 5 years to filming, you know, all these incredible video parts and being accepted in every community in snowboarding, whether it's the contest community, whether it's like people like Lewif, you have just such a tasteful way of snowboarding and all of snowboarding. Um, Thanks you for putting out that footage so we can steal a bunch of tricks and figure out what to do next. You
Thank you.
fucking wizard.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot. It really means a lot. And I think, now that I'm a bit older, I've got to the point where I can look back and really, appreciate and be thankful for those times. It really means a lot what you're saying. And yeah, I mean, it's not like, it sounds like I'm finished snowboarding and this is it.
No,
Like,
it's not,
gonna
dude. This
park
is why
that
it's
board.
epic.
But yeah, so far it's been awesome. And I think, yeah, snowboarding is the best. And I'm going to keep doing it for as long as those Yankee old knees are.
You got a solid
Yeah.
12 more years of video parts. Your best is just to come. Like, I know so many boarders who are just blossoming, and they're in their like, late 20s, 30s, and they're like just figuring it out right now. Like,
Well, I
it's
think
like,
you get to a point where like you're not as stupid as you were when you were 20. So you're a little smarter, but your body still functions. That's the way I like to look at it. So for
You
you and
also
me,
know-
this is our year,
you also know what you want to film. Like, I feel like more than ever, I know what I want my snowboarding to look like. You know what I mean? And
Well, what are you going to film this year?
I don't know, but I'm filming. I have a filmer. We have a project, and I want to film. I'm not gonna get mad at myself because I know I'm not going to achieve this vision
Don't
I'm
say
setting
that.
up. But I want to film. I would like to film my best video part this year. I think that I have the
That's it.
fundamentals. Like, I feel like I know how to ride backcountry better than I've ever known how to ride it. I have the crew. I have a safe crew. I have the tools. I have a filmer. I have a photographer. I have a snowmobile, and all things that I've worked really hard to get, including those friendships to allow me to go out there and safely ride the backcountry. So I'm just very grateful that I'm going to be able
Yeah,
to try.
dude, I can't wait to see. And yeah, it sounds like you're in the perfect position. And now just go out and enjoy it,
Yeah,
And
like
then the
we
rest
said,
will happen naturally.
we got to enjoy it. Well, I
Yeah.
will. It's just like I get so wrapped up in the moment sometimes, you know what I mean? That before I know it, I'm so focused on filming this video part, and I blink, and then it's April, and I'm happy that the season's over and I have a full part, and I realize that, why am I happy it's over? Like, why didn't I just enjoy the whole, like, I don't know.
I
But
know what you mean.
yeah. All right. So I have 5 questions that I ask every guest. Normally it's 4, but I'm just going to restructure it on this one because I just think these are better questions. So,
Sure.
Question number 1, which we already kind of went over. What's your favorite Hollywood movie? I know that you don't love Hollywood movies, but
Lord of the Rings.
hell yeah. All 3 of them, or one in particular?
I'll do all 3 of them, and this Norwegian movie called Elling.
Dope. Okay. Number 2, favorite snowboard movie.
The thing is, when you ask me it like that, I feel like I'm going to say something, and I look back in like 3 days and regret that I said that.
Okay, say a few that you liked, and then there's no
So,
pressure.
I mean, obviously 4D, that was like so important to me. And then in later years, I think like when in 2010, 11, I bought this like DVD box set That was like TV 1 to 10. And that sort of introduced me to, the 90s and
Epic.
way back. And so there's a lot of great ones from the 90s, but it's like hard to pick one.
Oh, all of them, dude. Anything with, Chris
Yeah.
Roach, Noah Slasnik, it's like Devin, the crew. The crew from back
Absolutely.
then is just the best ever.
But I think 4D is like the movie that really like meant the most to me at the time.
That's dope. Favorite book.
I don't read that much.
Okay, favorite. I was good. The only reason why I started asking is because some people read, man.
Yeah,
I don't read. I don't read much. So if I would be like kind of the same thing. What about favorite album
This is
or musician? Just like or like
well,
a favorite
I think
artist.
like what I've listened to the most over the years is probably like some Sabbath albums. Like
Oh, sick.
yeah, that's like sort of was like a bit of my introduction, like, or it was sort of like the first music that I picked and the first CDs that I bought. Like, so early Sabbath, and also when I got a car, it only had the CD player, so I brought all my old CDs out and I listened to like those five CDs just constantly, and that's probably what I've listened the most to. Yeah.
All right, one piece of life advice.
I don't know. I think try to not think too much about what everybody else thinks and focus on creating your own happiness and be kind to people around you and have respect and do what feels good for you.
That was Fugo, dude. Fugo, whatever.
I don't know.
Dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was beyond incredible. You're a boss.
Thank you for having me. Sorry for rambling nonsense and stumbling in my words for now 2.5 hours.
Oh wow, dude, that's epic. We rule. I have to pee like so bad, so I'm gonna pee and then I can come back and say goodbye.
All right, I got to too. So I'll talk to you soon. Do I stop now recording?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. Pause. Delete.
No, don't delete.
Done. Sure. All right. I'll see you in